The November 12, 2019 meeting of the Peralta Board of Trustees will begin shortly. Tonight, the board will hear presentations including the update to the 5-year integral financial plan, a report from Collaborative Brain Trust, and an information technology presentation. The board members are currently in closed session, and when they emerge, the meeting will begin. Please stand by. The November 12th, 2019 Board of Trustees meeting is about to begin. We're doing an additional sound check. Peralta Board of Trustees, November 19th, 2019. Additional sound check. 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 Check.
Madam Clerk?
Madam President, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much. We will stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, led by our Public Information Director, Mark Johnson. To the flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated. And welcome to our November 12th, 2019 regular meeting of the Board of Trustees. Madam Clerk, do we have a readout from closed session?
Thank you, Madam President.
Madam Vice President, do we have a readout for closed session?
Thank you, Madam President. At tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointment of the following public employee contracts, which is subject to contractual agreement by the Chancellor. 1. Recommendation to appoint D. Doan to the classified administrative assignment of Associate Vice Chancellor for Planning and Institutional Research, District Office. Under the direction of the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, the Associate Vice Chancellor provides leadership for research and planning at all the 4 Peralta colleges. Specifically, the position will provide leadership in organizing research and planning of key state initiatives that are the focus of college planning with the Peralta District. Example, California Promise, Guided Pathways, Integrated Planning, and Implementation of AB 705. The assignment shall be effective November 13th, 2019 through June 30th, 2021 at $145,142 annually. 6 ayes, 0 noes, 1 abstention, Trustee Ewan, and 0 absent. 2. Recommendation to appoint Dominique Benavides to the classified administrative assignment of Director of College Research and Planning, College of Alameda. Under the direction of the college president, the Director of College Research and Planning will plan, develop, organize, conduct, coordinate, direct, and evaluate research and planning for college functions, programs, services, and activities through the continuous assessment and analysis of student needs. The assignment shall be effective November 13th, 2019 through June 30th, 2021 at $117,231 annually. 6 ayes, 0 noes, 1 abstention, Trustee Ewan, 0 absent. If these individuals are present, please stand so that we can welcome you into your new position. Okay. Madam President, that concludes the closed session readout for tonight.
Thank you for that. We'll move to item 2.5, approval of the agenda. May I have a motion?
So moved.
It's been moved by Trustee Withrow and second by VP Weinstein. Any discussion? Item 9.5, you'd like to move that to action?
Yes, please.
It is in action, yes. Any other items? Seeing none, we'll take roll call. Thank you.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow? Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli-Abella Reese? Trustee Brown? Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2.6, approval of the minutes. A motion, please. Moved by Trustee Withrow, second. Second, VP Weinstein. Roll call, please.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen? Trustee Napoli-Abella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown? Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. Item 2.7, Associated Student Government Reports. Please come up to the podium. Yes. They know.
Okay. Good evening, Board of Trustees. I am the student body president for Merritt College, Spencer Staggers Elmore, and I'm here to report that last week we had a Kwanzaa event hosted by the Ujima Club. And it was a successful and enlightening event with step-by-step instructions provided by club members on how to conduct Kwanzaa, the Kwanzaa celebration. We also had we're having currently a Native American Heritage Month celebration. So we just had our first event November 6th. Our next event is on November 13th, and there are events all running down each Wednesday of November. So for this 13th, it will be a film viewing and discussion, and we have a speaker coming, Jackie Kilia. And on November 20th, we have a Red Market, Native American artist vendors, and mini museum of tribes coming to the school as well. And then on the 30th, we had Dia de los Muertos and the celebration event hosted by our Puente Club. It was a wonderful and successful and representative event. So I was a part of it, and I felt like everyone was able to celebrate peacefully and represent and respect all the people who have passed on and who they cherished and loved. So that was a really nice event. Another thing is that our PTK chapter, Phi Theta Kappa, is working with the sister Peralta chapters to register underrepresented ethnicities into the bone marrow registry to increase chances of cancer patient survival after chemotherapy. And we also had a successful event with the Black Panther Lunch-In, which Xavier Buck, from the Deputy Director of the Dr. Hugh P. Newton Foundation, was our keynote speaker, and he came to speak on our school about unity, collaboration, and cooperation as a community. He also expressed ideas of the creating of an interactive museum dedicated to the Black Panther Party, when encouraged students to volunteer and connect with the organization to help set the museum. And every food that was purchased by the student government was donated to homeless individuals in Oakland, California. So I'm happy to report that we donated a lot of food that day. And the last thing is our Health and Wellness Club also held a breast cancer awareness event, which 15% of the proceeds that they collected were donated to a local organization towards research work here. And that concludes my report.
So, good evening, guys. This is my first time in front of you all. So, my name is Alicia Rea. I serve as External Secretary for Laney's Student Government. I came here in place of our president. He's currently at a workshop today, so he couldn't be with us tonight. But he sends his best regards. I'm happy to report that we are working as a government to build our student government. We began in the summer with close to only 2 senators. Now I'm happy to report that we have representation from Latinx Center, and we've been able to invite 4 additional members since then, really 5. So it's growing, and we're meeting regularly on Tuesday to address some more student concerns in order to start being proactive. So it's a good thing to have some representation finally to start building our council. And so it's been an accomplishment. And we've sponsored the powwow event that will take place in December. And we just, as we also just had a beautiful celebration, the Dia de los Muertos celebration that was successful in Laney. But we're still working on addressing issues for our body. So stay tuned. Thank you all. That concludes my report.
Hi, everybody. My name is John Nguyen. I am the Campus Life Director at Berkeley City College. Unfortunately, our president of our ASBCC couldn't be here today because midterm, so I'm surprised they're still here. But I know that a lot of our students are currently in midterm mode, so I'm here to report some of the really awesome things that our student government has been doing. 2 weeks ago, we had a Dia de los Muertos event. It was absolutely beautiful. We had Aztec dancers. We had an altar that was up for a week. So it provided opportunities for our staff, for our faculty, for our students as well, to put up pictures of their loved ones so that they could be remembered. So that was a really amazing and awesome event. Moving forward, we are having Club Rush tomorrow. So this is our second Club Rush of the semester. Typically, we only have one, but the ASBCC really wanted the opportunity for all these students to join more clubs. And currently, we have about 25 plus clubs over at our campus, so we're trying to encourage as many students to join the clubs as possible. Last but not least, I wanted to talk a little bit about our food pantry that our ASBCC has really been involved with. So currently, we're partnering up with the Wellness Center, and they are currently offering produce, fruits, and vegetables on Mondays from 12 to 3 p.m. And just recently, last week, on Wednesday, we opened up our food pantry over at the Wellness Center, where we were able to start offering non-perishable foods for our students, which means canned foods. So we've had over 30 students come on that day to pick up foods, and it's absolutely amazing. Just the stories I hear is just really heartwarming. So I'm really glad that our associate students have really been involved with that process in order to alleviate food insecurity here for Peralta. Thank you.
Good evening, Board, President Bonilla, members of the Board, Chancellor White, and guests. My name is Karina Montes de Oca, and I'm the Vice President of Programs. And this is the President of College of Alameda, Israel Kissom. And then we will be giving you an update on the Associate Students of College of Alameda. Firstly, our College of Alameda's Halloween Boo Bash that happened this past October achieved its set goal of creating comic relief during these times of finals through snacks, Halloween games, and spooky karaoke. It was really fun.
We enjoyed it.
And the success was thanks to the collaboration of the Sari Sari Club, also known as the Filipino Club, with ASCOA. And next, our You Matter Day, another collaboration of ASCOA and the Sari Sari Club, also set its ensured goal triumphantly today. The purpose of the You Matter Day was to affirm that everyone matters through the act of encouraging students to become civically engaged. And we managed to do that through a presentation and food in our student center. And then thirdly, each of the 4 Peralta District Community Colleges agreed to meet up for a conference/campus tour at Merit, hosted by Merit Student Government earlier this month on November 1st. The associated students of College of Alameda were gratified with being able to partake in this conference. We managed to be able to interchange ideas, how each campus works when it comes to budgets or activities, events, being able to help each other establish different things on each of our campuses. And then I'd like Mr. President to take it away.
Hello, good evening. My name is Israel Quezon, and good evening, Chancellor Stroud. Hello. And so filling in Karina's report a little bit, this coming weekend, senators and officers of Associated Students of College of Alameda will be going to Reno, Nevada to attend this conference called ACUI. And at the end of the semester, we are hoping to go from 0 clubs to 3 clubs at school. And You Matter happened. And also I would like to raise PFT's costs, which was raised in the past meeting. I hope we take it into consideration. And Free Produce Market has been happening 2nd and 4th Tuesdays of the month since September. And that's everything. Thank you.
Thank you for that. We'll now move to item 2.8, Peralta Classified Senate Report.
Good evening, members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Stroud, presidents, and guests. Tonight we have only one campus report. On October 23rd, Merritt College Classified College Senate presented a resolution to College Council regarding the importance of hiring a permanent vice president of Student Services and Financial Aid Director. The Senate requests for these positions to be filled immediately, no later than Monday, December 2nd. And for the process to be transparent and shared with the Merritt College Student Services Department. The next meeting of the Merritt College Classified Senate will be held Tuesday, November 19th. On a personal note, just 3 weeks ago on Tuesday, October 22nd, the District Administrative Staff, Off-Center, held its first ever Flex Day activities for district classified staff. This event was organized by the Classified Professional Development Committee. The Flex Day activities were divided into 3 sessions with 2 workshops per session. 45 district classified staff signed up for the first group of workshops held from 9:15 to 10 in the morning. 47 classified signed up for the second group of workshops held from 10:15 to 11. And 46 classifieds signed up for the third group of workshops held from 11:15 to 12 noon, where lunch was served. The inaugural District Administrative Center's Flex Day activities was a successful event. District classified staff felt valued and appreciated. On behalf of all classifieds, we want to thank Richard Tholey, Jamil Tier, Laura, Leon Maurice, and Carlos Romero for their commitment and hard work on behalf of classified professional development. But on another note, it's been both disappointing and frustrating that there hasn't been Flex Day activities for district classified staff ever before. In the CBT Phase 1 report summary, under Area 1 Leadership and Accountability Recommendations, it says to establish an Office of Professional Development with full-time staffing to address onboarding and ongoing development needs of all employees. Under Area 4's recommendations for onboarding, training, and professional development, it says provide training and development for managers and classified staff, in addition to the Flex Day activities for faculty. With the CBT's recommendations in mind, the Peralta Classified Senate wishes to recommend the full-time hire of a classified professional development person. Members of the Board of Trustees, having ongoing professional development training for classified staff isn't just a matter of equity. It makes good business sense. That's the end of the campus reports. Thank you very much for your attention and support of the Peralta Classified Senate.
Thank you for that. We'll move to item 2.9, District Academic Senate Report.
Good evening, President Bonilla and members of the Board of Trustees, Chancellor Stroud, college presidents, vice chancellors, and members of California Community College District. Like to explain that last week the Senate was at the statewide state Senate plenary, and it was a very useful workshops there. One of the things that we were able to do was to introduce a resolution. Let me give you the title of this resolution because it's changed from the one that we had here at Peralta. This was approved and supported by all of the California Community College state academic senate members at the plenary, and it was, the title of it is Oppose Calbright's College Center Placement Within an Extant District and Program Duplication. And in it, basically, they were opposed to the Calbright duplicating the courses that were here at Peralta as well as at other community colleges. And the stress that the Academic Senate placed on this was that it didn't matter the way that the courses were being done, which was the argument that Calbright was using. And so they were opposed to the duplication and then the location of a downtown Oakland site. And so the 300 to 400 members made up of all of the different senates basically voted in support of this resolution, asking our executive leadership and the president to pursue these two areas. So that was very, very useful. We were proud of having that occur. In addition, some of the issues that came up at the plenary, which we are going to be following up on. One was that the state Senate approved of a diversity statement that goes along with our visions, missions, and values. And so that was decided upon. We focused also on areas around transfer, around guided pathways, AB 705 in terms of the implementation, looking at the data that we're going to be collecting at the end of this semester, and then looking at distance education guidelines. So all of these were very informative, and for anybody who wants to look at the different PowerPoints, you could simply go to the state Senate and download it from our plenary. We have all of the different PowerPoints from those. So that was what occurred last week. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will move to public communications. Vice President.
Thank you. I want to say a couple of things. If there are any students here who want to speak, if you haven't already filled out a card, please go and fill out a card. And the students should come forward first to speak. And second of all, for any of our trustees, if you have any concerns or questions that you would like to ask or comments, please go through the president of the board to the chancellor. So hopefully that will make things a little bit easier. Okay, I'm going to mention a few people. Please come on up. James Millett, Luke Piper, Eleni Gastis. Is this Isis? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Isis Pitch-Ilo and Michelle Snyder. Thank you.
Thank you. So, good evening, district administrators, college presidents, Chancellor Stroud, and trustees. Let me be very excited to tell you first that I stand here as a Peralta alumna, and I am now the Journalism Department Chair and Faculty Senate Vice President at Laney College. I am proud every single day that I get the opportunity to serve our students, which are lovely, and I've come with quite a few of them today, our journalism students. This is my first time speaking publicly at a board meeting, and I'd like to share some exciting updates with you from the district's only journalism program and student-run publication. When I took over this program this semester, given the state of enrollment for us, I was poised to make some significant industry-relevant changes so that students across the district could feel like this was a program that could propel them towards a promising career in journalism or a journalism-affiliated career. Our industry in this region is thriving, although it has taken a different shape. It is our responsibility to respond to these changes. I began by reimagining my scheduling and asking students what times, days, and modalities would work best for them. I updated the curriculum to include the most current skill sets and deactivated courses that didn't fulfill state or industry standards. I added distance education to my courses so that students who work and take care of their families could still take our courses. I upgraded our lab to one of the nicest spaces at Laney, maybe second to the Veterans Center. Here it's very nice as well. I formed an advisory committee with industry insiders who I hope we can partner with in the future and create some mentorships and some internships for our students. And I know you might have seen my emails previously. Our student-run publication is now fully online to match the industry standards, so we no longer print a paper. We have seen a boost already in enrollment, and students are very excited to have a modern, beautiful lab. Our courses have featured guest lectures from diverse industry insiders, authors, reporters, tech writers that have talked about everything from media bias to environmental reporting to Syria. I would like to add that none of this would be possible without the support and dedication of our visionary president, Tamil Gilkerson, Amy Marshall, VPI Rudy Besikoff, Dean Chuen Chan, who is now retired, and Dean Denise Richardson. I've come with some of our incredible students today who will be unveiling our new name. So part of this has been a rebranding also because we are now we want to focus on district-wide coverage as opposed to just Laney College. Our new website should be live within the next week, and we invite all members of the Peralta community to visit us and learn about our exciting revitalization. We just came from our open house that we hosted for the community. So with that, I would like to introduce our editor-in-chief, Michelle Snyder, who is going to unveil our new name.
And finally, we reveal the name. And before I reveal the name, I want to add that we all have been living in these, I want to say a big word, tumultuous times, right? So our name, we had to really debate it a lot of the meaning and what we wanted to convey to all of the students at Peralta. And so the new name of the publication is called The Citizen. And for some people, that means you need national documentation, and that is not what we want. We want to reclaim this. This is a community name, and there's a second meaning to this, and it is an inhabitant of your community, your city. So it means that it represents everyone, regardless of your status, especially since we have undocumented students here that we protect all the time. So they are part of our citizenship here at Peralta. And with that, I would like to also introduce our mission statement, which was a group effort by all of the students. And we do have a wide range of students. Some of them are not here. Some of them are straight out of high school. And they are learning brand new information about journalism and multimedia. This is a wide world of new information for them, and they're really excited. So the mission is, The Citizen is the student-run publication of the Peralta Community College District. Our mission is to amplify community voices while holding those in power accountable. We foster the growth of student journalists while giving full representation to our complex and diverse community. We provide current, balanced reporting rooted in truth and clarity. And that's it. Sometimes it's just a nice, simple message. And thank you. I would like to thank everybody who has been really supporting us as well. I think that we're off to a really great start, and we really do want to do fair and balanced reporting. I personally do not like to report on negativity if possible, and we've already been reporting on several great things, like when TED Talk Oakland was just here last Sunday. I reported on that. That is on our website right now. Currently, it's still the Laney Tower on a Medium site. It could be Googled, but we will have the new website, The Citizen. What is it going to be? The PeraltaCitizen.com? PeraltaCitizen.com next week. Thank you. Yes.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me the chance to speak. My name is James Millett. This is my first semester in the journalism program, and I'm a staff writer at The Citizen. We represent all 4 of the campuses, and it's been a great experience. And coming to school later in life, I really like the opportunity to write and the structure that Ms. Gassis has provided for all of us. So I hope you enjoy what we write.
Hi, my name is Luke, and I'm a student at Laney and at Berkeley City. And I just wanted to come and say hi and thank you for having us. And Peralta District has done a lot for me, because there's a while after high school where I wasn't in college, and I've come back and it's really welcomed me. So I just want to welcome you guys, and I hope to be an asset to the district. So thank you.
I'm too short for this. Okay. Forward. Is that fine? Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Isis Pacello. I am currently the managing editor at, I was going to say Laney Tower, The Citizen. And I'm looking forward to being editor-in-chief next semester after Michelle, though those are pretty big shoes to fill. Just wanted to share that I'm really excited about the direction that this department is taking, and I'm really looking forward to working with everyone and meeting those that I haven't already. Thank you.
Okay, and next we have John Beam? Okay. I need a drink. Jameen McNary. Damar Johnson. And Rajon Wright.
Good evening. I'm John Beam. I'm the athletic director and head football coach at Laney College. I want to thank the board always for supporting students first. Chancellor, it's my first chance to meet you, so hi. Presidents. Today, I want to just talk to you a little bit. I brought some of our student athletes from Laney College, but I wanted to talk to you a little bit about CalPass, which is a data system that we use to track our data for our athletes. Most of you know I'm very competitive. I like to win. And, you know, with all the things that go on that we hear every day about things that aren't working, I wanted to tell you what is working. So for our student athletes at Laney College, it's working. And it's because of Tamil and Vicky and all the counselor and all the faculty that are there to help support them. When we look at the data that I brought, and I can share with you, is that a Laney student athlete takes 24 units. That's not counting summer school, and most of them take between 7 and 11 during summer school. A regular student only takes 9.
Jesus.
A Laney student athlete, 51% graduate. A Laney student transfers at 61%. When we take math at the level of transfer math, 81% pass. When we look at math, 92% pass. There are 10 colleges in the Bay Valley. Of those 10, it's Marin, Solano, all over, including Alameda and Merritt. Laney's number 1. And it doesn't happen because of me. It happens because of all the people on our campus. And I want you to keep that in mind because that's what you're here for, right? It's our students. And I came, I think last year, and I told you that this college, this system provides hope and opportunity. And these 3 people behind me, they all came here for different reasons with not a lot of opportunity, and we gave it to them. And now all of them will be leaving. Jasmine, right here, and she'll get a chance to tell you what she was a track and cross country athlete. She's got a full ride to Cal State Dominguez Hills. Damar is a football player, but he's had internships the last 3 summers with Intel, right? Intel. His nickname to me is Coder Man because he's gonna write some fabulous code that's gonna help the world be a better place. Ray, he came last year with his brother, and they come to Laney every day from Stockton. When Ray was a senior, unfortunately his father was shot and killed. And they still chose to come to Laney, even though it was easier to stay in Stockton. He drives every morning. His brother last year, his goal was to try to leave early, and he took 27 units in the spring. And he made it. And right now, he's starting at Oregon State on a full scholarship, but he's starting. Last week, he had 1 interception, 1 interception. And now with Ray here, who's taking 21 plus because he wants to leave in December as well. And he has offers from UCLA, Oregon State, Colorado, Baylor, all over the country. The difference is the support that we're able to give or you're able to give, provide, and that's Vicky making sure this tutoring money is there, and Tamil making sure that, you know, they have something to eat, the pantry, all the different things. It makes a big difference. It's something real little, but the difference is insurmountable. And when I give you the transfer rate, and I don't agree with 61% because it does CalPass, and I think, Chancellor, you were shaking your head like you knew about CalPass. I don't believe it captures out of state the private schools where many of our student athletes end up going. And so if we look that in, anecdotally, we think we're at 90%. So again, thank you very much, and I want to let each of these introduce themselves. Thank you so much.
Hi, I'm Jasmine McNary, transferring to Cal State Dominguez next semester, and I run track and field. Oh, my major is psychology.
Damar Johnson. Hopefully I'll transfer in the spring of next year. and my major is computer science.
I'm Rajon Wright, major in social science, and I transfer in December, hopefully.
One last thing, when we look at enrollment, I know it's been a big thing, right? The student athlete enrollment at Laney has not dropped. We've been staying steady for the last 5 years at 200 student athletes. So I'm not sure why that is. I want to think I know, but I don't want to say it here. But I think it's because of our support on our campus. But we haven't dropped at all. So just keep that in mind, that and they're transferring and they're graduating. So thank you very much. I appreciate you all.
Okay, before we end, I just want to make a correction, which was tonight, I said at tonight's closed session, the board voted to ratify the appointments. It's actually the board voted to approve the appointments. Madam President, that concludes the closed session readout for tonight. Oh, and public communication.
Can we just give our students, did they leave? Give them another hand. Yeah, that was just awesome. It's amazing. This is why we do what we do. And Chancellor, I will turn this next section over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, President Bonilla, members of the board, my colleagues here on the dais, and friends and loved ones in the audience. It's my pleasure to be able to offer this Chancellor's report. And perhaps you've noticed as a result of the last report and this one, it's really my interest to try to highlight some of the great things that are going on at the colleges to make sure that we are putting on the agenda some of the regular reports that we have to give you, but use this time to really kind of celebrate all of the great things that are going on at the colleges. The presidents at each of the colleges give you a report from those colleges, and they are much better and do much more justice to the great things that are going on, but we try to pick something to highlight and based on their recommendations. So let's start with Berkeley City College, which just hosted the first in a series of regional community conversations where they were looking at reimagining financial aid, sorely needed, but particularly as students are coming out of higher education with high amounts of debt. Really glad to see this on the radar of many policymakers as well. They did this with Assembly Member Buffy Wicks and the Campaign for College Opportunity. And they had participants from student leaders from BCC, from UC Berkeley, from the California Community College statewide Senate, and from the Board of Governors with the student representative from the Board of Governors, Alexis Zarangoza. So thank you so much for Berkeley City College having those important conversations. Also, congratulations as Berkeley City College gets the gold seal for campus voting rights. And that's where they participate in the All-In Democracy Challenge. And the All-In Democracy Challenge is identified as celebrated nationally, and they identify different levels of participation in terms of students participating in the voting. And Berkeley City College got a gold campus seal. Congratulations, that means you had participation rates of 40 to 49%, great job. It's really important for our students to be engaged and participate in this experiment called democracy. College of Alameda has some exciting things going on. The AMT program, or the Aviation Maintenance Technology Program, got invited to meet the U.S. Navy Blue Angels, and so you see a picture of them there at the hangar during Fleet Week. Exciting stuff, and one of the students really expressed their interest in their excitement around that and how honored they felt to participate. Laney College, you recall that Laney College has the Restoring Our Communities program that serves formerly incarcerated people or justice system impacted students, and They celebrated a birthday, had a delicious-looking cake, and had all kinds of celebrations going on. But it really is looking about supporting and equipping formerly incarcerated students as they try to come back and make their entree back into society in order to be successful. Merritt College, talking about the influence that the colleges are having in the community. A couple of years ago, the Merritt College students, Intertribal Student Union, established a resolution that that Columbus Day should be changed to Indigenous Peoples Day, and the city did do that. And so even though in 2018 the city of Oakland changed the name to Indigenous Peoples Day, it was this year that they came on that anniversary, they came and presented a proclamation to the Merritt College students, the Intertribal Student Union of Merritt College. So congratulations to the students, and really important for us to see the impact that students' voices can have, not only on our institutions, not only on their lives, but on the larger communities that we live in and that we serve. So congratulations to the Laney students for that. Also celebrating at Laney College was the Latinx Cultural Center, and the June Steinberg Gallery opened up a Dia de los Muertos, so at the cultural celebration there, and it looks like it was a phenomenal event, and they looked at this partnership and identified what they were interested in doing. And mostly, it was about honoring loved ones who are no longer with us. So you saw you heard the student make reference to that earlier when they spoke. And then I would like to, if I can just shift papers a little bit here, pardon me. I would like to, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm there. Voila. I would like to take a moment to talk about, you've heard me make reference to Peralta's gyms, and I actually, the first week I was here, came up with that, where I identified that there are so many great things that are going on at Peralta, and that while we might look at some different challenges, the truth is that we have some gyms. And so I thought I would give you an update on one of Peralta's gyms, and that is Interim Vice Chancellor Sata. One of the things you'll see is that soon we will be calling Interim Vice Chancellor Sata Dr. Lee Sata. He successfully defended his dissertation, and his dissertation is on sustainability in the California community college system. And one of the things that I think is really interested, he's going to receive a global executive doctorate, and that's from the USC Rossier School of Education. He's completing a program that's focused on policy implementation and entrepreneurship. But also, I think one of the things that's really interesting is that he's getting to take some classes where we're having some conversations in it about a lot of the conversations that you have with regard to education, a lot of race, class, gender issues, and some of the things that are happening, societal things that are going on. So, from the mind and mouths of the facilities people is the understanding and scholarship and expertise around making sure that we're serving the community and taking interest in and focusing on many of the issues that impact our students, particularly around some of the race, class, and gender dynamics. So congratulations to you, Vice Chancellor Sata. Very proud of you. And while I'm talking about great things, I'm pleased to report that he just joined the Board of Community College Facilities Coalition. And as a board member, that means that Peralta, has some state system-wide presence and the ability to influence not just here, but the ability to influence system-wide. And he's sitting with a lot of, well-respected colleagues and loved ones at that level as well. And their highest priorities are increasing funding that's provided for community college capital outlay. And I gave you lots of information about it on from the website to give you a feel for it, but it is about trying to mobilize resources and get the state to recognize the importance of funding community colleges so that students in the communities can have access to the buildings and the grounds and the facilities that they deserve to have access to. Okay, so congratulations on that.
Thank you, Chancellor.
Of course. The next thing is that I plan to have a more in-depth report to you on the FitMac. I imagine that you're wondering, okay, how are we doing? Where are we with the recommendations, and are we meeting them? So I just thought I would give you a little bit of information right now that is an update, and then have a broader presentation prepared for you. So first, you know that we're in the process of selecting the Vice Chancellor of Finance to be bringing it to you. I expect to bring it to you in the December meeting. But because we have to give the report to ACCJC, and because time is of the essence, we also have been taking advantage of having access to Steve Crow, who has done a wonderful job in working with the staff in order to figure out how we can address many of these issues that are in the FitMac. And what he did was he took the assessment that we originally went under and identified areas of priority that said, look, these are the things that I think we can address. And if we are successful in addressing these things, our score would go from the 69, where it looked like we were in high risk, would go down as low as 14, which would be much more a much better, stronger position to be in terms of our fiscal integrity. So they have been going through systematically through those different recommendations, and I actually do have, you know, all of those different things that they're doing, what's in progress, what's been changed, what processes have been untangled. There are some things that we're going to be able to do right away. There are some things that will take time. So for an example, it will say, if it says over a 3-year period of time you did X, well, you got to go through that 3-year period of time to do X. So I think that we're going to be in a much stronger position in terms of getting these things done. Many of them, I will tell you, are based on the filling of vacant positions. And so the positions you'll see in another part of my report, when we talk about CBT, you'll see those positions that we are in the process of, whether it's the internal auditor, the director of purchasing, the vice chancellor of finance. So I'm real encouraged by what's possible, and the staff have been nothing but you know, eager and willing to do to answer the questions and untangle the places where there was confusion. And we really are getting to some of the things that I think sometimes cause a lot of frustration, with things kind of getting stopped or bottlenecked or somehow not going through as smoothly. I think that we are going to be in a whole different situation, and it will depend upon multiple things, including the next conversation we have about the comprehensive and integrated technology as well. And then I have 2 more pieces. The first thing is that you asked at the previous board meeting if you could have a list of the projects for Measure A and the bond, and you asked if you could have that by this board meeting. And so we actually do have that, and when we try to concise it to make sure it's you know, consumable, we realize that we can show it to you, but we realize that we're going to have to send this to you so that you can have it, and then we can agendize it to have a further conversation if you'd like. But Lee went through, Vice Chancellor Sada went through the work to get all of this done to identify it went away, to identify the different projects, and has some numbers that are associated with that. So, and then when he showed that to me, I said, look, we're all over 40 years old, so we have, well, maybe most of us. So we're gonna have to get to you so that you can consume it in a much easier way. All right, and then I'll turn that over to Vice Chancellor Sata, if you would just say a couple of words about that might clarify something.
Sure, thank you, Chancellor Stroud. I'll just quickly give you an update. This is a Measure G. This is a draft form of what we're calling our bond spending plan. We're working through the governance process now. We've had a couple meetings at the District Facilities Committee, and it's now moving through the colleges. This basically, these numbers, which are way too small to see, are a list of every project that we plan to implement for Measure G, which all totals up to the $800 million that we have to spend. I'm just going to roll through the projects here just to give you the overall structure. We have projects from College of Alameda, projects at Berkeley City College, at Laney, and finally at Merritt. And then a couple of projects here at the district, and then what we call a category of program documents, which includes how we pay our program management fee. And we have a 5% contingency, which we think is wise to have and is sort of considered relatively standard. The other thing that, in terms of the document for you to see in terms of formatting, is just to let you know that each project has a percentage of the budget associated with it. So if you have a question about, gee, that project at $13 million sounds like a lot of money, it is, but it has, in the overall scope of the bond, it really just represents 1.71%, for example. I'm just picking one of the projects arbitrarily. That happens to be the locker room and gym that we're doing at Merritt. So that's the first chart that we wanted to show you. The second thing you've been asking us for is to give you a roll-up of all of the Measure A projects. And this is a pretty complex chart. So what I'll just briefly say about the overall structure is that it's a list on the left of every project that was conceived under Measure A going back to June 30th of '09. And then the next column to the right of this column that says June 30th, '09 budget is the accumulated adjustments that you've approved over the many years that this program has been running to land on the 2019-20 fiscal year adjusted budget. So if you were to ask us how much are we spending on the new Center for Liberal Arts, we would say that your adjusted budget today is $40,686,495. The total expenditures on that budget is the next column. So we've spent on that project $17 million, and we have a fund balance of $23 million. And then these final three columns get to be a little bit more wonky, so I think it's probably something that we would be better off spending with you in maybe a more detailed work session. But it's an encumbrance number, which is the contracts that we've already let out, and the commitments are contracts that we've budgeted for but we haven't let out yet. And then the available budget is essentially what we think will be left when the project is finished. So, we know what this project will cost, and so of course we don't expect it to need more funding or less funding, which is why it zeroes out. The other thing I wanted to show you is that it's organized by campus. So you can see we have Laney College, Merritt College, COA, of course. And these are all above the line. And then below the line, which is indicated with the purple, everything below that are projects that are already finished. So if you were to look at a specific project at, let's say up at Merritt, there was a photovoltaic project done back in the day, and it cost $7.867 million. And of course, you're not going to see a fund balance, encumbrance, commitments, or available budgets because that project is closed out. And you can then roll down to the bottom line and see that on a $390 million bond, we accumulated over these 10 years approximately $16 million of interest, which is why the fiscal year adjusted budget is $406,110,000. And we've expended to date, as of November 4th, which was Monday, $332 million, okay? So this kind of gives you a sense of where we're at in the bond project or bond program for Measure A, and this will dovetail in, of course, into our Measure G plan, which is the previous plan I just showed you. So you can start to see how those are connected, and we'd be happy to do a more detailed work session to answer what I would imagine would be many questions. So I'm happy that we've finally been able to get you the information. I want to acknowledge Andrea Stokes, who prepared this document. She's been working hard at it. She is actually the Measure A person who works in the finance department and keeps regular track of these. It's a very difficult job, but she's just on top of it. So I'd like to just say thank you to her. Okay.
Well, thank you for that.
And just, and we will agendize it so that you can have, one, it's on board docs, so you'll have an opportunity to, look at it, digest it, ask questions, et cetera. And then we'll agendize it so that you have, the appropriate time that you want to go as deep or as, or not deep as you want to go on it. Okay? All right. And then finally, the last thing I have in the Chancellor's report. First of all, thank you.
Chancellor, can I just interrupt you for a second? Because I'm so excited right now. I don't know what to do with myself. Can I just, I know we have lots more to go through, but can we just appreciate for a moment both of the list? Thank you profusely and your team for following through on this request. And I'm sure I can speak for the entire board, how elated we are to be able to have a document in one place that we can now go to and answers lots of questions. And even if we, yes, and we appreciate and look forward to a much more detailed review of this. So just thank you for that.
Of course, thank you. All right. Then the last thing that I have on the Chancellor's report is the enrollment report. And you have the enrollment report, and I asked Vice Chancellor Brown to be available to give you a little bit of a summary and answer any questions.
Good evening, community colleagues and Board of Trustees. You have in front of you the November 12th enrollment report. And remember that our annual target this year is 17,000 residential FTEs. We have looked at summer, but I wanted to note that since the last report, we've collected additional FTEs for summer. That puts us at 185 residential FTEs above the target. Last summer, summer 18, we hit 1,893. So you can see that we are, our summer schedule and what's happening here is an increase. And for fall, we were seeking to aim 7,650 residential FTEs. To date, we're at 7,044.21, which is a deficit of 605, and puts us at a 92% achievement of that target. We will not meet the target for fall. In fact, we will collect additional FTS with our intercession and positive attendance, but will likely fall short of about 450 residential FTEs this fall. And down below, you can see the individual college data, noting that the residential FTEs from last fall compared to this fall on the same day is down 199.34 residential FTEs, which represents about 2.7% decline from the previous fall. If there's any questions.
Trustee Brown.
So thank you for the report and for the facilities report, as well as the update regarding our enrollment. And my question is, I guess it's twofold. It in part addresses some of the CBT recommendations that we have regarding outreach and in-reach. Really, the report that we're going to be looking at later, well, I guess it's our Phase 2 progress report, coupled with this sort of the reflection on where we are in implementing change in terms of how the district's operations are performed. The question is, with regard to our enrollment and our outreach, the manifestation of the connection between our service area and our district is still a connection that has not been fully realized. It's still fractured. And so what I'm asking is, what are the plans other than our dual enrollment, which is fantastic and which we have been working on for the past 5 years in terms of making that more robust and more meaningful in terms of guided pathways and students being able to focus on a particular area of study. When are we going to incorporate our interaction with our community-based organizations, with our neighborhoods, because we are still not tapping into the lifeblood of our community in many ways, and we are setting our targets, I think, more conservatively, and we're getting a lot closer, but we have not yet utilized our ability to do that outreach. And the precursor to our enrollment management plan was a very intense outreach with town halls, with community meetings, and we dropped that and we became more technically focused. And I think instead of dropping one, we really need to marry the two. And we have not yet resumed our engagement in the community. And I say this each meeting because it has taken 12 months, and I'm still saying the same thing, and we are actualizing the concern regarding the enrollment drop, but we have not yet put foot to floor in terms of taking that walk into our community offices to build that connection. So the question is, when? When are we going to resume that effort? Because it did bear fruit. It came before the enrollment management plan. It came in concert with the dual enrollment. And why have we dropped one as we picked up and polished the other? Why do we have to do one and not the other? That would, I'd say, would be an existential, open-ended question through the Chancellor. It does not have to be answered by one person.
I was going to ask if I can make it rhetorical. You know, you probably have seen that in listening to the board, I try to be real responsive to what the board is asking for, as well as particularly when you say you've had the repeated request around some things. I try to make sure that we're being very responsive around that. And this is the second board meeting and the second time I've heard you ask about the community thing. So one of the things, I know that the colleges can talk more specifically about what they do in terms of the community partnerships and the outreach in the community and the connection with community-based organizations. But one of the things that I think is going to be really important, and this is a conversation that I've started to have, is I think it's important for us to have an overall strategic plan for this district. And the strategic plan would be guided by the board's strategic vision. And so it means the board engages to say, look, this is what we as a board believe in terms of a strategic vision or the board statement. That board statement drives a strategic plan, and then the colleges can have those strategic priorities that feed to that strategic plan. Part of that strategic plan, I can't imagine doesn't include the connection to and engagement with the community. And then that way, a lot of the things that it wouldn't be just the isolated, what is the outreach with the community-based organization doing, but it would be the ways in which we approach our institutions and the programs and services and all aspects of that institution to be able to meet and drive those main threads of the strategic plan. So that is something I won't be able to get it done before next week. But that is something that is on the radar and that we are paying attention to, and that we've actually started to have some conversations about. And the important thing is, I realize that we are focused on some things that require our immediate and intense attention right now in order to meet some of the things around ACCJC and to get the FITMAC recommendations taken care of and to get the CBT recommendations taken care of and to prioritize that. And then I also realize that at some point we won't be in that crisis mode so much that we will have a chance to be a lot more externally focused. And one of the things that, so for an example, when we first started, one of the things you may realize is that in the first week I did 2 welcoming addresses for conferences in Oakland. The first welcoming address was for Just Equations, and Just Equations is a group that addresses how math instruction is used throughout systems of education in order to perpetuate inequities and how we remove those barriers and make sure that people have access to that. So a lot of people that are doing that work, scholars that are doing that work, philanthropic organizations that are doing that work, many of the community leaders and activists are there, and they invited me to give them the welcome address, and I gave them a welcome address, and so there is a connection with the Peralta Community College District, and that was on the day of the classified flex day, as a matter of fact, which is why I wasn't at that day. So it was I think it was the second day or third day of work. Then the second thing was we hosted, the city of Oakland had 1,000 African American students who were part of Umoja. That the conference was held here, and we had students from the 4 colleges participating as well. I gave a welcome address at Umoja, welcoming them to to the city of Oakland, but we did that by agreeing to host that conference. There wasn't a cost for us to host it. All I had to do was say, yes, we support this conference, give a welcome letter, put my picture in the front of it, and then say some really dynamic words in the welcome address. And it brought a lot of attention throughout, where you had 1,000 African American students from all over the state understand the significance and the impact of Peralta in this district. So I might not be able to show you that translates into the enrollment of that student here, but it does translate into the community understanding the cultural and social capital that exists in this institution and what we represent. So working on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Another question, Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you for the multiple reports, and I'm really appreciating on the enrollment data, Dr. Brown's data comparing year-over-year target and result, and then also noticing the breakout in terms of dual enrollment sections, et cetera. I'm wondering whether it would be difficult also then to include some of the targeted areas that are mentioned in the 5-year plan. So, for example, online education, we know that's been an area of growth, and it's like, can we better understand at a policy level where we need to be investing more to get the growth? And in particular, I'm noticing impressively, Laney went up in its outcome, but the inputs, we had fewer sections, but we had more FTES, and I'm wondering how do we explain that? Did we invest in particular areas? Was there a particular How do we understand this, what happened at Laney specifically? Do we understand it?
One of the things I will say is what you just described is attention to productivity, so that what you have is more FTES, higher amounts, but it costing less in terms of FTEF expenditure. So you're explaining the phenomenon of productivity in identifying that. And then I would have to let Laney speak to specifically what did they do to get that kind of productivity, because that's part of what we have to look at throughout the district, not just online but on site as well. So I can ask Laney to speak to that. And how'd you do it?
So I'll say that the Laney's really tried to take a very direct strategy in a lot of number of ways. Some of those are curricular. So you saw Laney Gastis here tonight talking about a program that really has been absolutely one of the lowest productive and enrolled programs, but a program that we felt like was really, really important to keep at the college because of the fact it was the only program at the college. It's not duplicative, and we need that information. So actually getting a faculty member who was really interested in actually updating curriculum, that takes a while. Refurbishing the lab, if you'd seen the lab beforehand to where it is now. So really trying to invest in both the physical infrastructure as well as other things has created both excitement on the campus, but a real focus on the curricular pathway. And we've done this in a number of areas. You'll also see Laney has gotten some new associate degrees for transfer done in social justice studies, in ethnic studies, in Chicano studies. So we've been really working on the curriculum pathway and trying to plan and offer courses and our allocation based on where the programs are standing. So there's a portion of that. And then I think it's been a large-scale strategy around listening to student voices for over the last year. We've taken a real approach to doing probably close to 50 focus groups with students listening to that they're saying about what they want for our college, both in terms of guided pathways development, as well as undocumented student focus groups. And what we heard from students around scheduling was they wanted more early morning block times and as well as the evenings. And so we've really tried to adjust with a reduced allocation, trying to add courses into these areas to provide for more options for our students to take, because we know that there are times when they're doing that. And I think really it's been a concentrated effort, and I give all credit, really, frankly, to our Vice President of Instruction, Rudy Besikoff, our Vice President of Student Services, Vicki Ferguson, and frankly, our deans. We have incredible deans who have been working with these department chairs in really kind of difficult situations to really try to do what our chancellor has talked about, which is be a little bit more productive and thoughtful about the way in which we're offering the courses. So it is, I think, a multi-pronged strategy that you can see, and I'm very glad that Lainey has been able to sort of come back up, and we continue to iterate and be looking at how we can improve.
Thank you.
That was the end of my report. Yes, thank you, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And Trustee Brown, yes.
Again, it was really a pleasure to have the report from VC SATA on the bond projects that we've done and completed. And our community has been extremely generous with us when it comes to bond funding. And I'd like to know if there is an idea at some point that's being considered in having a town hall, maybe to report on what we're doing with the money that they've allocated to us. There's been a large part of what our restructuring and our correction of internal procedures and is addressing the payment of vendors, for one thing, and our accounting systems. And I think our community wants to know that they could work with Peralta and that they can actually not, get paid on time. And I think if we could relay that information to them to let them know that the work's being done and that we take them, we value them, and we don't take them for granted. I think it would be great if we could have some sort of interaction where we are intentional, not just a workshop that's open to the public pursuant to the Brown Act, but intentional in sending out the invitation, the request to have our community partner with us in participating in that.
I think it's a terrific idea, and we'd be happy to work on that. I think there are different opportunities that we can create around reaching out to different, not only constituencies that you all represent, but the A&E, architecture and engineering community, as well as the contracting community, to let them know that the work, about the work that we have coming. We've also talked about trying to put together small business outreach programs, and so this could be an opportunity where we maybe combine some of those things together. So I think your suggestion is well taken, and we'll start thinking about how we might do that as we start to think about the official launch of Measure G. What I didn't say in the previous presentation is we still have about $65 million of Measure A to sell. So we're kind of closing up Measure A and at the same time then getting Measure G started. So I think this is a great opportunity to do that. So thank you for that.
And then also, may I please add, Madam President, that we also, I've asked Vice Chancellor Sata to start having some forums on the campuses to let the campus communities know what's going on. So he's presently working with the presidents to get those scheduled. And sometimes when you hold those forums, not many people show up, but if they get used to the fact that you're going to be available and have that information, usually at least the users of whatever the new building is or whatever is being changed and that impacts them, they are the ones that show up, and it gives people a place to go and give their opinions and express their concerns and highlight things that they want us to pay attention to. So he's already put together a presentation. We call it the road show, to take the show on the road and start to talk to the campuses so that people can become more engaged and aware of the things, of not only what's happening, what has happened, but what they can expect to happen in the future.
That's great. Thank you so much. We will go ahead and move into presentations. Item 3.1, update to the 5-year integrated financial plan.
Good evening, Board of Trustees. Present to you the update to the 5-year integrated financial plan, 2019 to 24. This is due to ACCJC December 2nd. When I was here October 12th at the board meeting, I walked through with you the shared governance process that we utilized, bringing the updates to PBC as well as PGC. For input from our shared governance, our participatory governance, committees. In this document, you'll note that there's an integration of the FCMAT recommendations, the CBT recommendations, as well as we've updated all of the data throughout the 5-year integrated financial plan. And there's one piece that I'd like for you to note, and that's on page 40. Where one of the key pieces is the 5-year projections for Peralta's financial forecasts. And we have not at this point yet determined which of the scenarios we will adopt for the 5-year projections. So we put in the report 5 different options that the participatory governance PBIM process will evaluate in the upcoming meetings. And in those, let me scroll down to the page. In those, you'll see it may be difficult to see from here, but there's a scenario with full parity and COLA, a scenario without COLA and without parity. There's a 5-year scenario with part-time parity only and with COLA, and there's scenario 4 with COLA only. All of these, and then also the 5th one, is with full parity only.
42 right now. I'm sorry. 42.
Yes, page 40 through 42. And all of these scenarios were created by Adil Ahmed, the director. We also vetted everything with Steve Crow from CBT, and again are including these because we have not decided on which of these scenarios we'll move forward with. But we want to make sure that with ACCJC that we're very transparent about where we're at in our process and provide an update that shows what we're thinking in terms of our projections. So if there's any questions about it, we're seeking approval tonight on this update, and we can discuss anything that you'd like to discuss.
Madam President?
Yes, we can open up for discussion. Trustee Withrow?
I have a question that I've got to get into for a number of reasons. We have approximately $200 million in funds held in trust in Peralta. These funds are held in trust to cover the retirement health care out over a period of time up through and including 2049. And in this budget, we're showing ripping off trust funds to the tune of $40 million. Okay. We have actuarial figures that show that It's 198 million plus 12 million, roughly, and I'm rounding off, obviously, 210. Bottom line is, the district has ripped off funds held in trust over a period of time to the point now where the funds we have held are below what the actual figures are. There's no way that this district can sit and justify ripping off another $40 million out of the trust funds. It's my experience, without getting into a whole lot of detail and whatever, that various agencies in our government get very uptight and very nasty when funds or something held in trust is violated. And I sense that we've got this going on, not only doing it year by year when they come in saying we're going to go broke if we don't take this money, that we'll have bonds going into default if we don't take this money. And yet, when we look at the 5-year budget, we're programming to rip off those trust funds for $40 million. I've got a real problem with that. And I hope that we'll show this in the minutes, because there's going to be an investigation, and it's not going to be pretty.
Trustee
Madam President.
Trustee Withrow, thank you for your comments, and I will defer to the Chancellor.
I was just going to say to Trustee Withrow, I appreciate the information, and then I'll be glad to come back with further information. I'm not sure that I understand what you're stating. I'm not sure that I would characterize it that way. So I want to be able to have that conversation with you and come back with some further information. All right.
Thank you. Other questions? Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you very much. I want to express my gratitude and thanks for the many staff people who must have been working on this document for quite some time and then providing the revision. I in particular appreciated the transparency of the spreadsheets that you showed on pages 40 through 42, and look forward to digging into those a little deeper. It'd be actually really helpful at some point if the underlying data on those spreadsheets we could source clearly, but that was really helpful. I want to ask a question about something on page 25 regarding the parcel tax. And I remember when we approved the annual budget, I asked the question by what method we were dividing up the parcel tax. You know, how had it gone through a shared governance process? Were decisions about parcel tax expenditures being made on the campus level or at the district level? What I was led to believe at that time was that they were being made at the district level, but I'm noticing that in the language on page 25 of the report discussing the parcel tax, it references the budget allocation model and says that the parcel tax is following the budget allocation model. And so I'm trying to clarify, is the idea that the budget allocation model moving forward will be applied to the parcel tax, or is it that currently the parcel tax is looking at the budget, that we're applying the budget allocation model to the parcel tax and then sending those funds out to the colleges to make the decisions about how those monies are spent, consistent with the language of the parcel tax initiative?
So what I'd like to remind my trustees right now is to.
And that was a question, of course, for the Chancellor.
For the Chancellor, thank you.
To respond to.
And the Chancellor wants to be able to respond to those kinds of questions. I'll have to come back with some information. I understand the question that you're asking, and I'll have to come back with, I'll
Okay,
do some
and-
homework and come back with that information.
And then I have another question for
Of course
the
you do.
Chancellor, and I'm sure you'll be able to come back at some point. On page 26, it references a 12.5% OPEB charge. And I was trying to understand two things about that OPEB charge. Now, I understand that, we're beginning to collect funds to put aside, but maybe you could, if you don't know now, maybe you could come back then and help at least me understand how that works. It's a 12.5% charge on what? Is it on every FTEF, every employee who's a pre-2004? And then what does that money go to pay for? Is it to go to pay back the trust fund liability? Or is it going to pay for the underlying medical care costs? Or is it going to pay for the post-2004 medical care costs? I just was curious about how that interacts with the trust fund, money, and with the payments to pay back the trust fund liability.
So I would have to come back to you with that information. If the Peralta did the OPEB in ways that typical districts, that is typically done, it might be a little bit simpler question to ask, but I understand that Peralta has
More complicated.
to answer. But I understand that Peralta has funded their liability, and now it takes on a different issue with the debt. And so I'll have to do some homework and come back to you with that.
Okay,
with the
and
answer
I
to
don't
that.
know that the whole board is curious about that. I was. So-
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Trustee Reese.
May I also just complicate that with one more question that you can certainly get back to me about? So as I was looking at this, the only thing, and I'm sure it's here, I just cannot seem to find it. I know that with the 2019-2020, we have a $14.9 million amount that we're going to have to pay, and we've all been talking about that. So my question is, on this particular tentative budget, I just do not see it reflected, the payment reflected. And so I just want to be sure, number one, that we are transparent, that this is accurate, and that I'm looking in the right places for it. So if we can respond to that question when you have time or at another moment, that would be phenomenal. Thanks.
Yes, of course I will.
Thank you. Trustee Weinstein.
Hi, thank you for your work. I just wanted to check here on the chapter, which is Financial Management and Administration.
Page.
That is page 68. So one of the things as I'm kind of strolling down and was taking a look at all these blue things so that you can click on the links, which I appreciate it a lot. I was looking at, actually page 69, where it says details about the committee and its meeting minutes. So it's talking about the Citizens Oversight Committee. Is a perfect example of how are you using this to help oversee the budget and stuff. But if you click on that, and you click again on that, we don't really have that information. We don't have the information about who our committee members are. And when either, if they haven't already, when they will be getting started, or what the status is with that. And since it's a quite important issue, the Citizens Oversight Committee, we need to be really clear that when we have a link, that link goes to something that's going to make sense to people and that it's updated.
Yes, and to answer your question, both of those committees are formed. There are, on one committee, there's 2 vacancies, and on another committee, there's 1 vacancy. The process is open right now, and you soon will have people to approve. We are in the process of scheduling meetings and had a conversation this morning, as a matter of fact, about convening the committees, providing some information in terms of, reviewing the language and what we're doing, and setting an agenda for that committee. So you're absolutely right. The committee is staffed, minus the 2 vacancies on one and the 1 vacancy on the other. And I'll ask Mark Johnson if he'd like to add anything to it, because right now he's taking the lead on that for us.
If I could just clarify, there's just 1 opening on each committee, on the bond committee and on the parcel committee. But the application process is open, and we are encouraging people to apply for those positions.
Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure that when we're sending in our 5-year strategic plan, that when somebody clicks on the link, it's accurate information. Okay, it's really, yeah, thank you. I think the other thing is when we're talking about the audit, I'm not clear, or I guess I was not clear, that we have in fact finished correcting all of our audit findings, significant deficiencies. And I'm just wondering, where are we with that? Because in here, it seems like we have finished it, but I'm not convinced that we have.
Siri, you're shaking your head like, please do handle that one.
I'm shaking my head because we haven't received the audit report, where we would be able to compare the last audit report and note improvements or things that have been solved or resolved. So we're waiting for that. So throughout the document, when it references the audit findings, that's what I state. And we probably won't receive it until mid-December. The auditors are here now, and I spoke to them. And then in the next update of the 5-year plan, we would be able to include that.
So from the audit from last year, which, if I understand this correctly, the audit from last year will know this year, when the new audit comes out, whether in fact we have taken care of the deficiencies from last year.
Right, to satisfy the auditor. So obviously, in the last audit report, we talked about the things that we would do to correct, and we submit evidence around that, and then the auditors come around again the following year, and they validate that and verify that, and they have not completed that process yet.
I wonder, just as something to consider for next year, and again, I'm not quite sure how this would work, but I know that when we had deficiencies last time, there was a response made by the previous chancellor that when there were corrections that were made, that he would share it with us, so that if there was a significant deficiency or material weakness, and the board was asking, have these been corrected, he would come back and let us know if they were corrected. And I don't believe that happened, though, it may have. Is there some possibility that we, as a board, can stay on top of this?
I think so. One of the things that I'm really looking forward to, first of all, I think Mr. Crow, who's been here, is going to be able to help me answer some of these questions, because while they may not have validated it yet, there's some things that, because they were in the audit, we've addressed specifically because they were in that audit. Some of those things will be addressed by the hiring of the positions that we have to hire in order to do that. But some things are a matter of process or procedures or having controls in place, which takes the peoples in those positions, et cetera. So whether they get validated or not, what we can do is we can prepare some information that brings you up to date on the things that we've done in response to the previous audit.
Thank you. I would really appreciate that, because I know that in the part, when FICMAT spoke about this, they brought up the issues of significant deficiencies and material weaknesses. And I think myself and some board members would just want to make sure that we are following it closely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Brown.
Thank you again for the report. It's quite comprehensive and much appreciated. I have a question regarding the budget allocation model. The fire watch that we experienced was a resounding reminder of the impact of underfunding the budget that we have for facilities, because the board had previously done research regarding, or worked with the facilities department to do research regarding our fire life safety. We went out for an RFP. We had selected a contractor to do job on-call contracting to do repair of our fire life safety, and then it was not funded, and it was about a $1.2 million contract, and we ended up having to pay for fire watch and having to pay for the work that we had already selected a contractor to perform and approved the contract. So that was an example of the impact of not properly funding our facilities services or department. So I'm wondering about what we're doing in our review of the budget allocation model to address the lack of sufficient funding, so that when the board approves the contract, it'll actually get funded, because it's not in our lane, it's operational. We did our part on governance, and there was a disconnect, and the work didn't get done, and we paid twice. So I'm wondering what we're doing to address that issue so that we don't have a repeat of following through as a board and then having the consequences fall such that it disrupts classes and costs quite a bit of money when there are matters that are not within our purview.
So thank you for that question. That's actually an area that I have spoken with the governance groups about, because of the ways in which we fund facilities in this district. It's unsustainable. And I have asked the governing groups that are given the recommendation on the budget allocation model to give me a budget recommendation and a recommendation on a model that funds the entire enterprise. And what that means is that it is unacceptable for us to wait until January for the whole half of the year to be gone in order to see what's left in vacant positions to fund facilities. It's not a sustainable model, and it's part of what contributes to not having money loaded in the budgets, and then the people that are in finance are trying to just do their jobs and not send things through that don't have money in it, but in the meantime, the bills have to be paid, things need to be fixed, there's safety to attend to. So that's one thing, is that we're looking at the budget allocation model. The second thing is, regardless of the decisions that have been made with regard to governance around the funding of facilities, I'm not waiting until January for that to be fixed. So I'm looking at the finance folks working with me in order to fund facilities now so we can pay our bills and keep the lights on and keep the water running. And what that means is, one of the staff said, well, you may have to take a budget back to the board in order for the board to vote on that in order to make those changes, then so be it. Because in the meantime, from now until January, when they actually get the budgets loaded up, bills have to be paid. So we're going to do the work that we need to do in order to get the things in front of you so that you can act in order to make sure that we have facilities up and running. I do not know how that came by as a strategy for funding facilities. I've just never seen anything like that in terms of practice in other districts. So I'm hoping that we're going to be able to address it through that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've not seen it either, and it's because it is an operational matter that is not a board governance matter. When we were doing our job as a board, we were not aware that we had such a destabilizing factor built into the structure. Yeah. And I think it's really important that we look at the entire process.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm sure that people in facilities can talk about the impact of doing otherwise.
Yeah.
Because we have one glaring example, but I would not be surprised if there were many.
Well, we see the consequences of it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I just did have one.
Trustee Handy, please.
Piggybacking on Trustee Weinstein's questions about the committees, what I wanted to know is, last year, we had people apply to be on the different committees, and those people, people from taxpayer associations, attorneys, people in the community, and they never got, they filled out the application process, but they were never contacted. What I want to know is if someone will pull those names out and contact those people and see if they still have an interest.
Okay, so seeing no other questions on this item, thank you very much, VC Brown. Chancellor?
Sorry. We may have failed to get this in the right spot, but we actually need to be able to send this off to ACCJC, and we need the board's approval to do so.
So we'll take a vote on this item.
Move acceptance of this report.
And a second?
Second.
With a second by VP.
Technical question. We're talking about the report that is under presentations, right?
Yes.
And can we just ask legal counsel if we need to amend the agenda to move it into an action
Well,
item?
while the report is under the presentations heading, the actual board item does call for the board's action.
Okay, all right.
So we have an approval, we have a approval by Trustee Gonzalez.
An acceptance.
Acceptance.
Do we need an approval?
This is an approval. We are approving or,
I just want to clarify the language that we need.
I'm looking at the item. Okay, so I'm looking at the wrong thing, because it says information, but that's not right. That can't be right because we're voting on it.
Yeah, we should amend the agenda to.
So let's amend the agenda.
well, it says that the Chancellor recommends approval.
Yeah, the issue, President Bonilla, is that under type, it lists information, and all Brown Act items require that they be noted as action items. So my recommendation would be if you would consider amending the agenda to change this to an action item and then consider approval of it.
So moved.
In other words, we are not going to do an ACCJC item unless it's Brown Act compliant.
Yes.
I
So
move that we
have an approval
move this item
to turn it
to
into action, and we need and we have a second by Trustee VP Weinstein. All in
And
favor?
that we accept this report and approve it.
Second.
Okay, so it's all done at once.
Great, and we can do roll call, thank you.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
No.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuen?
Yes.
Trustee Napolia Bella-Reese? Yes. Trustee Brown?
Yes.
Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
And Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you, motion carries.
Thank you. Item 3.2, Collaborative Brain Trust Fiscal Improvement Plan Services, Phase 2, Progress Report. Chancellor?
If I can ask the CBT team to come up.
So it takes 3 people to help me figure out how to get it all turned on. Chairman Bonilla and the rest of the trustees and Chancellor, Vice Chancellors, Presidents, all the district leadership, thank you so much for taking some time to hear about the progress on the CBT project. We're very excited about the progress so far, and I have to share with you that with all the years I've been affiliated with the Peralta District, I'm very hopeful right now. It's a time of very great hope and looking forward to how things are moving today. And I really appreciate the Chancellor's work in just the short time that she's been here. So I wanted to start with our project and just talk about that this project is now in phase 2. You recall that we did phase 1 in the spring and provided recommendations and then looked at priorities for phase 2. This phase 2 goes from August until May. And so this is kind of a mid-project progress report to let you know kind of where we are, what's been accomplished so far, and what's coming up for the remainder of the project. I have the rest of my team here, and I've asked them if they would stand so I can introduce them, and then I'll have them come up in a minute. But if you could stand up so that everybody can see who you are. Dr. Steve Crow here in the front, who is our finance person, and he's in charge of the fiscal area and some of the systems and processes that are in phase 2. Donna Boatwright, who is our lead on the enrollment management component, and Dr. John Spivak on the other end, who is accompanying her with the enrollment management piece. They're working on both the instruction and student services side. And then we have Dan Rosenberg, who is our research specialist, and he's also working with the student focus groups as well. So we'll let them talk about their pieces in a few moments. And I'm Nikki Harrington. I think you all know me, but I'm the project lead and trying to keep it all together and keep things moving and provide all the support we can for you as a district. So I wanted to start with just giving you some of the integrated themes that weave through this phase 2 of the project. It's very important to us to keep these in mind as we do the work that we're doing. So while this is a fiscal improvement plan service project, you can't do anything about finances unless you have everyone engaged and some of these themes in play for it to work smoothly. So first of all, obviously our work always centers on the student. Student-centered work is our theme for everything that we do, and we follow the student life cycle continuum from the point of connection to entering to progressing and completing, getting a job, transferring, whatever the student does. That cycle has a lot to do with being a fiscally healthy district. The second theme is the 4 C's. We've woven this through each of the components of phase 2. So no matter what we're working on, we're talking about communication, collaboration, coordination, and collaboration, coordination, I don't have them in order. Cooperation and communication, all 4 of those. And I'll touch on those some more as we move forward. The third one is transparency. We're always wanting our work to be transparent, open to questions. We talk to whether it's classified staff, faculty, administrators, the executive leadership team, whoever it might be, to keep the work very open and try to answer questions, be very inclusive. We have worked with over 300 people here in the district in this phase 2 part already. And we continue to engage as many stakeholders and encourage participation as we go. The fourth one is valuing every member of the Peralta district. That's very important. Each voice is important. It doesn't matter if you're a student, if you're a teacher, administrator, whoever you might be, that voice is important because each person here touches students in different ways. So that's a very important concept for us. Trying to regain some of the mutual respect that has been a little bit problematic in the district. We saw that in our phase 1 study, and so we've been trying to encourage conversations to be very collegial, for people to talk with respect with each other, to keep the dignity of each individual in play at the table so that everyone's voice is valued and respected. And then, of course, embracing change, that our world changes every day. And so trying to continue to build a culture that embraces change, that change is important. Our student population changes every year, and the community around us changes every year. People move in and out of the community. So we want to make sure that we're embracing those changes as they go along. And then this last one is also important to us, building institutional capacity so that there's meaningful change that lasts, so that fiscal stability lasts, and that the four colleges and the district as a whole is growing and building its institutional capacity to do more of this work on their own. We think we're successful when you don't need us anymore. So we strive for that, to try to reduce the reliance on consultants so that you build that institutional knowledge inside, in-house, and carry that forward for the next go-around with whatever the project is that we're working on. So these are important themes for us. You recall we had these 6 areas of recommendations. They're not in any particular order on this screen, but leadership and accountability, enrollment management, systems and processes, organizational structure and staffing, fiscal stability, and public image and marketing. I would say as far as the sequence of working on them, they all have kicked off at the start of the project in August, but our very first focus was on the fiscal stability section under Dr. Crow, and he'll share with you those aspects. But the 3 things that he started with, you might remember, is validating the district's budget numbers, validating the FCMAT recommendations, and validating the projections from the SCIF formula from the state. So those 3 were really important right off the bat for the September adoption of the board budget, for the board to adopt the budget in September, and also to prepare for the Board of Governors meeting that you had September 16th. So we started with that and put a lot of energy on that up front. And then the next one we moved into is the enrollment management piece, because the schedule goes to print in the spring. So we knew that needed to be front-loaded in the system, and we wanted to really work on enrollment management. We have 4 areas under that, and Donna and John and Dan will cover those when they come up. But that was another one that we kicked off really pretty early to start focusing on that, along with the leadership piece, because obviously bringing the cabinet together, bringing the leadership team together under the prior chancellor and with the new chancellor coming in, trying to build a collective voice among the cabinet. So that was another area that we focused on early. And then we're rolling in the rest of those as we move along. So what we're going to do, we have a slide for each of these, one slide, and we'll just give you some highlights of what's happened and where we're going next. And then the Chancellor is going to add in sort of the district's response and what the district has been doing in response to that particular area. So we're going to do a little tag team here as we go. Anything you want to say? We'll just go ahead and start. Okay. All right. So let's start with Area 1, leadership and accountability. The 3 areas we focused on here, the executive turnover and staffing, as you know, has been problematic in the district. So we took a look at that, spent some time with Vice Chancellor Whitaker trying to get a handle on what that turnover is all about. The department developed an interview sheet as an exit interview for people, but people are kind of reluctant to do that. So we've talked about some strategies for trying to get a handle on why do people leave, why has there been turnover. But one of the big areas obviously has been this whole notion of mutual respect and people working together in a team. And so that came out as a theme. So we've been working on that piece in this first part of the project. Under organizational structure at the district level, we of course looked at the structure in the district office and how many vice chancellors there were and what the structure was like and what kinds of vacancies existed and where were there vacancies, which were key to the function of the institution and also which were key to the FCMAT recommendations. So we tried to weave together the ACCJC recommendations, FCMAT recommendations, and our own assessment from spring to look at the structure and the staffing within the district office operation. And then the third area, which we found very important, was the whole area of automation and technology solutions and long-range technology planning. That's not part of our Phase 2 contract, but that is moving along, and I know you have a report from Vice Chancellor Minlam tonight, so he'll give you some more information on that as well. So I'll turn it over to the Chancellor for the district response. You want to go to the next one? Go ahead.
So I want to give you an idea of how we're responding to those recommendations so that you have the confidence to know that we are moving on those recommendations. And Dr. Harrington talked about the different areas of focus and identified, the vacancies and some of the issues around the culture and those different types of things. So one of the things I will tell you is that there are 24 positions that are across the district that are in progress, and that many of those positions are key positions, whether they're in finance, looking at the administration at Merit, for an example. There are 12 administrative positions there, and 8 of them are vacant. And so our goal is to make sure that the people are in the positions to be able to do the jobs that need to be able to do and preserve the integrity of the institution and make sure that the institutions are able to preserve their accreditations and operate at a certain standard. Also, you can see that one of the things I can see that even though it's just been 2 weeks, that the very first all-campus, all-district email that I sent out was really calling on our better selves to look at how we talk to each other, how we treat each other, the level of decorum that we use with regard to that. So I've had some conversations. I met with the union president this morning. I met with the district academic senate president, and we've actually engaged in some conversations around, how we treat each other and how collegiality, I'll put it like that. In terms of the executive team, I'm really interested in building a cohesive, strong executive team, because you cannot have excellence if you don't have that strong team, and you cannot have excellence if contempt pervades the institution and organization. The executive team has a team site. We meet regularly, look at a lot of different issues, and it's a way of us pulling together and having some collaboration, because one of the things we saw throughout the report was that people were working individually, and I think it was titled or described as being in silos. And so now there's a lot of collaboration, and we have actually a means by which we can bring issues to the team, and the entire team gets to focus on those types of things. We will be establishing leadership standards of excellence, and right now I have asked that the leadership standards of excellence that we establish get put in every job description or every announcement that goes out to bring in the leadership, and that is to say minimally that these are the standards that we believe that you need to be able to meet in order to be a part of this leadership team, and it's around issues of integrity and honesty and transparency, responsiveness, those types of things. And we will, we'll start with some, but we will tweak them to meet our needs and speak to our values here in this district. As well as I've started the conversations to engage the International Confederation, Coaching Federation, that a coach who is certified to be able to help us build our strong executive leadership, and that is an overall plan for the leadership team as well as the individual members that are part of the team. The goal is to develop a strong team that is cohesive and that goes through the processes so that we are team one. That we are crystal clear about our roles and our support for each other and how we make things happen. And our intention is that we will show up differently and redefine leadership in this institution.
And I can tell you, as an outsider from the institution, we've seen a lot of coming together within that executive leadership team. These presidents that you see on this side of the table and the vice chancellors you see over here have been working very hard to bring the institution together and to do the very best that they can do to try to lead the institution forward.
Yes. And then I also have to say that this was a particularly good hair day, which is why you're looking at that picture.
Is this before or after you moved the tassel? Is it? So I'll pause there on Area 1 to see if any of the trustees have any questions at all on Area 1.
Trustee Weinstein.
Yes.
Yeah, hi, Nikki. Thank you
Yes.
for this. Looking, just kind of skimming down, but also just looking at this number one. How do you think this directly relates to students? Because you put that in as the middle of the most important part, or not the most, but the middle. So how do you think the executive leadership really deals with student success?
I think it happens in many ways. I'll give you an example. For example, if you're going to look at the kinds of programs and courses that you offer at each of the colleges, the 4 presidents working together and their vice presidents of instruction working together to coordinate and communicate those 4 C's, provide that leadership so that students have the kinds of programs that they need that match and meet the needs of the community. But working together, they can see where programs need to be duplicated or not, depending on what the need is in the community, rather than each one just doing their own thing. So working together, that's extremely important. Another example is looking at how many FTEF, how many full-time equivalent faculty and full-time equivalent student enrollments are needed with the targets. You heard Vice Chancellor Brown, for example, talking about the targets, the target FTES, and how much allocation of staffing is needed. They have that dialogue together to try to figure out, what's the right mix and how much, does each college need, and how do we sort this? How do we assign some of it to dual enrollment? How do we assign some of it to regular credit students, that kind of thing? So it's working together. That leadership is extremely important. If you have colleges that are competing, then you end up with, well, I'm going to put the course on over here, and I'm going to put the course on over here, and now you just splintered your student population. So that working together, which is what they're doing now, is very important for the institution, and it's very centered on the students. Those are just a couple examples.
Thank you.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Other questions on Area 1? So speaking of enrollment, I'm going to move to Area 2 next. It's important to think about fiscal improvement or fiscal stability. Really, if you boil it down, it's a very simple picture. You try to bring in as much revenue as you can. You try to use it very wisely, effectively, and efficiently, very prudently, with internal controls, consistency in procedures, so that you're using the money wisely. And on the outgo, you try to reduce your expenses as much as you can. The only way to impact your fiscal picture is either bringing more money in, putting fewer dollars out, and doing a better job in the middle. So with those 3 things involved, enrollment management hits all of those areas, because enrollment management is about bringing the students in, which is where we get most of our money, is from state dollars, from enrollments and the SCIF formula. And it's also ensuring that progress through the curriculum, that students progress, they complete, and so you have the success factors, and they're successful, they go out and get jobs or transfer, whatever they're going to do. So enrollment management is a really critical, extremely critical component to fiscal health. And as you know, the enrollment at Peralta has dropped. It's dropped 25% in the last 5 years. It's dropped 33% in the last decade. Lots of districts have a loss of FTE. I mean, that's common sense, the recession, and so that trying to regain that momentum back again has been a struggle for many institutions. But this has been a pretty severe drop for you, and so doing things the way it's always been done is not going to give you some different results. You're not going to see that growth like you'd like to. So stepping back and looking at enrollment management becomes very important. So we highlighted these 4 areas, and I'm going to turn it over to Donna Boatwright, and she's going to kick off with the schedule redesign being one of the most critical first steps.
So the list of these 4 bullets are all about what enrollment management is about, but schedule redesign is one of the most important when you are looking at a situation of low enrollment. And I have to say that a couple of things that occurred earlier in the board meeting really addressed this quite well. The faculty member who presented about the journalism program listed the things that were done in order to bring a program that was on its last legs into success and viability. She looked at the courses and evaluated those which were no longer relevant. She updated the ones that she wanted to keep. She looked at the schedule and looked at what the students expressed as their needs and changed the schedule in order to meet the students as they came through and be able to take the courses. And she revitalized the program. And that is one of the things that we are doing when we're doing schedule redesign and program redesign. Block scheduling is very, very important, particularly in a district with 4 colleges, because one of your athletes, I believe it was one of the athletes, introduced himself as being a student at Laney and BCC. You have a lot of students who are going to more than one college to fulfill their program, and so block scheduling across the district with collaboration and coordination among the colleges ensures that students can maximize their opportunity to take the courses they need in timely fashion. So that's something we've been working with your vice presidents of instruction and student services on. And I want to say the team of vice presidents has been very committed to working on these changes that they also see are needed. Over the summer, I worked with your research people at the district. They did all the work. When I say I worked with them, I said, gee, wouldn't it be great if you had the ability to see the schedule across the whole district at one time, so that if a program is being offered at more than one college, it is being offered with a spread across time so that it isn't all at one time, and you can get a picture of everything that's going on across the district. And the research folks really stepped up to the plate and created what we're calling POST, which is Peralta. The P is for Peralta, and it is an online scheduling tool. Thank you. Thank you, Dan. Anyway, when you click in there, and it is available on your website, when you click in there, you can see all of the courses when they're being taught across the district. And that will be a tool that will be very, very useful in creating what we are committed to creating for the 2021 year, which is the best schedule ever for the Peralta district. In terms of program redesign, some of the things that have to be looked at are looking at your degrees, your associate degrees, and turning them into associate degrees for transfer. That's a financial plus for you if you have more transfer degrees. Looking at stacked credentials so that students can begin, earn a credential, earn another one, and perhaps also earn a degree. The sorry side is looking at discontinuance sometimes when you have programs which are no longer serving or programs that no students are really interested in taking. And also on the other side, looking at new programming that better addresses the needs of the students that you now have. There was a question asked by a board member about how do you have fewer FTEF and still get more FTES. That's effective scheduling. I had a president once that I worked for who said we have to stop flying our planes half empty. And strong scheduling, you fly the planes you can fill up. And you meet your students' needs. And in doing that, you raise your FTES, you get more money for the district, which allows you to do some of the other things that you want to do, which are less, they're not going to produce so much money, but they are part of what you want to have as a part of your college. You can support weaker FTES programs that have value when you have a strong schedule that maximizes the FTES for the whole program. Finally, you have to look at how your schedule is set up in terms of the ed code. And the programs in California have to have between 48 and 54 hours of instruction. But if you have 54 hours of instruction for a class, you maximize the money you earn for that course. All of your courses here are 52.5 hours at the moment, and that change needs to be analyzed and assessed and made after looking at the implications and what has to be done in order to do it. Pardon me, for 3-unit courses, yes, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague who also has been working on this, and he's going to talk about faculty assignments, and that's John, and then Dan will talk about student services priorities. But before I leave, does anyone have any questions for me? Okay.
Trustee Gonzalez does have a question.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I'm curious on the post tool.
Yeah.
Who has access to that tool and who's been trained in on it?
We had 2 training sessions. We've trained the vice presidents and the deans and the department chairs. They've all been invited to the sessions that we ran. Only about a quarter of the faculty department chairs came to that session, but it is online. It is available at your website. You have access to it. You can look at it yourself. It's, Dan, what's that called? The dashboard, right? It's in the dashboard?
Yeah, I don't have the URL.
It's in the dashboard when you go into your district website, and I can get more specific information to you.
So does the post tool show you real-time scheduling for, let's say, you're building out the summer schedule, and you're a department chair in political science, and you want to see what's being offered across the district? Can you look real-time? What is the mechanism that helps the schedulers actually then say, oh, okay, well, you're going to offer it at 11:30. Well, I'll offer one at 12:30 instead.
Right.
How does that actually work then?
What you would look at, for example, if you're building the fall schedule for 2020, you can look at the fall 2019 schedule, and you can see what you did do. And then you can have a conversation across the 4 colleges with your colleagues in that department about whether there are things that you really want to jiggle and make some changes about before you put the new fall 2020 schedule to bed.
And so what is now our organizational change that would have that department scheduler then make that phone call or get together with her colleagues in the other 3 colleges?
What we hope to do is to have cross-discipline discussions throughout the rest of our time here, working with departments across the district so that people are talking to each other in a given discipline. You know, it's sort of like a cobweb, because it isn't only your discipline, it's your discipline's relationship to other disciplines in terms of the pathways, for example. So that, I mean, I have worked with colleges where there was totally good intent, but nobody realized that all of the courses that were necessary for the pathway were being offered in ways that the students couldn't take them. So it meant that they had to stay longer, many more semesters, in order to finish their programs. So as Nikki said, the collaboration and coordination and communication is important. The tool only is something to use, to look at, in order to have those conversations and make the decisions on the basis of the collaboration.
So that's actually exactly where I'm going. You've got the technological tool, but if people aren't using the tool, that's one thing. And then even if you're using the tool, but the culture of collaboration isn't somehow facilitated, then we're kind of back to where we were. And that's what I'm asking. I guess that's really what I'm asking. What's the whole cycle look like in terms of that scheduling transformation?
The cycle looks like people talking to each other, working together to build a strong block schedule, working together to be sure that the courses that you're offering are fitting together with each other. And it really does take a tremendous amount of communication. And I know that the vice presidents of instruction are committed to working with their faculties at their colleges to enhance that. And we are here to also assist in putting together meetings so that people can talk to each other much more than perhaps they have in the past.
I suppose what would be helpful for me as a board member then is, once we've figured out a model and a best practice, we've got like the art history departments across the colleges doing that, then seeing, oh, okay, well, that's what it looked like, and now we're going to model that out across multiple disciplines in a way. And so what I'm hearing is that right now, you're still working on that, but it's not something we would look at and go, ah, voila, it's all done.
That's correct. But there are some departments that are already doing it.
Thank you.
I can add a little bit to that. When you ask what the cycle looks like, Madam President, is it okay for me to say that? When you ask what the cycle looks like, it really means that we're looking at the conversations that take place across the 4 campuses. So right now, the classified staff who do the scheduling are all meeting together, have those conversations in order to look at the work that they do with regard to inputting the schedule. The vice presidents of instruction across the campuses meet, and so they'll be looking at their strategies for doing the schedule, because it will not be a matter of just rolling over the schedule. It will be a matter of us being strategic about scheduling so that you're not in the position of having to go back and correct and drop classes and those types of things. So you're right to say that we will have to look at the operations of this in order to make sure that we're a lot more strategic with establishing the schedule. And that will be done through those processes across the district dialogues to take place. And that also includes the training of the department chairs, so that when they're putting forth the schedule, so we're going to be looking at the whole department chair structure as well, how they put forth that schedule, and then making sure that we're not just rolling over, and what decisions they make and how they make the decisions about what courses you have based on the student demand that we have. So it is an entire set of work that will be done around this. And that's not something that CBT will necessarily do with us. That's work that we will have to do long after they're gone.
And may I follow up?
Yes, please.
So now then the next question is, to what extent then are we making sure our academic senates are being integrally involved in that? Because it's oftentimes the faculty members themselves who really understand when students want to be there, when they can be there, et cetera. And so if we're not integrating that in, then we're missing something in the loop.
So if the part of the operations involved that we had to do something with regard to one of the areas that the academic senate is responsible for giving us a collegial consultation, then of course we would be engaged in the regular governance of that. If it's involved in some of the actual operations, in other words, when we're doing the scheduling, like the conversation around block scheduling, you're going to see those types of things. We have involved the faculty in that work. But there is also other work that is part of the work of doing the scheduling, getting the scheduling out, and managing the enrollment and doing the productivity, that is not something that is necessarily a governance vote or a governance discussion. There's some of the operations that take place just in terms of the work that's done. So we will honor the work of the things that affect, for an example, the areas of collegial consultation with regard to the staff, the areas that significantly affect them, with regard to students, the areas that significantly affect them.
And what I'm talking about here is not so much a 10+1 question, but a very practical question of who's actually having direct contact with students. If we miss that, then we're missing some important piece of intelligence. That's all. Thank you.
Yes, and the information will come not only from the faculty who have direct contact with students, will come from the staff who have direct contact with students in the areas of service, who will come from the students themselves when we're doing the focus groups, and that kind of information from the students. So it will come from the entire enterprise that interacts with the students, because you're right that they have the direct contact with the students in the classroom, but the students are on our institutions throughout the institution and interact with all of us.
Thank you.
Trustee Brown.
Yes.
I have a question regarding the Area 2 enrollment management with regard to the program redesign and the stacked credentials and the how contract ed is considered in that model. Part of it's the connection and the entry for the student, and sometimes, especially in a demographic or a geographical area as large as the area that the district covers, and with the cost of transportation, students are not always on the campus. There are pockets of neighborhoods where people are, where they could be reached through contract ed, and I'm wondering how that's being considered when we have a campus that's dropped, like you said, in the last decade, 33% in its enrollment. So there's the reality of facilities that are empty or not used to their full utilization, and that cost, but then the reality that people are not always going to be able to get their start on the campus, because as a community college, we serve non-traditional students.
Well, just contract ed is not FTES bearing. Contract ed is education that is paid for by the users in one way or another. Usually contract ed is a company asks the college to train its employees in some area and pays for it.
So I should, let me rephrase that, non-credit or those entry, there is the non-credit that has the apportionment funding that
Right.
we're missing if we're not where the students are.
That is true to a certain extent. Some of your non-credit CTE requires the materials and the equipment that are at our colleges. But that's definitely an issue. I don't want to imply that it is not.
I'm just asking for help. I'm not making a point.
Yeah. No, I think that you have an office that's looking at those issues, and your vice presidents and deans are looking at it as well as some of your faculty. Did you want to say something else, Nikki?
Yeah, but he just left, and I wanted to reply to his
Why don't we move on to faculty assignments, and John?
A little bit of a follow-up. One of the things that we've been stressing is to build a fall 2020 schedule that's the best schedule ever for Peralta colleges and for their students and for fiscal viability, and the two can work together. Obviously, it's a long process. Here we are in November. The schedule becomes finalized sometime in March. There's discussions that take place right now, and then drafts are input by individual college schedulers. And there does come another point in early February where all of the information has been input, and a lot of it is done quite manually. Hopefully someday it'll be more digitized. But then is when folks like the Vice President of Instruction, Student Services, deans, and so forth have to look at that in consultation with faculty, especially department chairs, and say, okay, we had these ideas, we put them together, but there's still some problems because what you input is still not working out. There's still duplication in some places where there doesn't have to be. There are missing classes some places, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an ongoing process. It takes a long time. It takes a lot of work. And what we're starting now, as Donna and Nikki have pointed out, is the beginning of a process that will continue well after we're gone. And we're starting to build that capacity, as Nikki said, within the existing staff. And we've gotten some great response. One example of one of the things we did working with the best use of faculty is we had two what I would call professional development workshops that were aimed primarily at department chairs, but also managers and deans and VPs were invited. Unfortunately, the turnout was pretty low. We only had about 25% of all the department chairs attend. On the other hand, those who were there were very much engaged. They saw, for example, how the POST tool works. We, especially Donna, explained the history of how FTES is funded, how the notion of 17.5 came about, again, through the history of the way community colleges are funded, and why that's a number to strive for to get to the kind of fiscal stability we want, as well as trying to get to the best possible schedule. And the two work together. I appreciate Trustee Nguyen's comment about this almost seems counterintuitive. We're offering fewer sections and we're getting more enrollment. But good scheduling where people work together, this can happen, and this needs to be the future of the Peralta colleges. And I see this happening in the engagement of many people throughout the district working together to create a schedule that works well for students and well for the district. One of the things we've also talked about is the analysis of instructional versus non-instructional assignments and the best use of faculty time and talents, especially in light of the 50% law. There's a lot of discussions that take place around that, so that part of it is the best place financially for a professor, an instructor, is in a classroom. That's the way we're funded. Maybe it's not the best way it can be funded, but that's the way the state funds us. So we've been talking about that and having discussions along those lines. I'll defer now to Dan, and then if there are any questions on that, we can take them.
So in all the things that we're talking about, we're taking a very serious look at how these things impact students, because that's why we're all here. The perfect schedule will serve students in a way that helps them achieve their goals. So something that I've been working on is to review all the surveys that have been done, the CESI data, other data that we and your researchers have been gathering recently. And now we're having focus groups. We had one today at Merritt College. We'll be having one with students tomorrow at Laney, and then the other two colleges on Thursday. And what we're focusing on with the students in the focus groups is to identify the loss points, identify the obstacles that they or their friends and fellow students encounter along the way, and which cause many students to leave. So some of the themes that emerged are consistent with the past data. Financial aid was seen as one of the big challenges that they saw. The students, I asked them, what would you change? What would be the one thing you would change? And they want, on each campus, they want some assistance. And they said they feel sorry for some of the people working there because they don't have enough staff. They don't seem to have enough person power to get the things done for them. They want access to counselors. Now, when we showed a show of hands, many of the students in the focus group today, for example, said they have great counselors, great access, but they were all in particular programs. And the general access to general counselors, the grant programs, yeah, the access to general counseling is challenging. We all know that. They're handling so many students, but they'd like to have access for their fellow students. They mentioned their student ed plans that they all had, every single student in this group. However, a couple of them commented that they didn't have them when they started, and they took classes that they later found out they didn't technically need for their program, and that, of course, affects their financial aid and affects other things. So what I'm going to be doing, conducting the rest of the focus groups, but I think we might be able to do a little more research on correlating students who have left the Peralta colleges with whether or not they had student ed plans. So that's just one thing we might look at. And the other issue they brought up was Canvas. The students unanimously like Canvas. They like it a lot better than Moodle, the previous system, but they want to see more professional development, for everyone who uses it, including faculty and for students. So we're going to continue with the focus groups and put that data together with the previously gathered data, and I think we'll be able to have very, very targeted points at which this student loss has occurred over these last years.
So to summarize this section, you can see there's a lot going on in this category of enrollment management. The important thing to note, I didn't want to leave you with the impression that we have the technological tool, everything is all done technology-wise, because we did mention the POST tool, but that does not include electronic room scheduling, and it does not include an active electronic scheduling process. It's still all done on paper, red pen, cross things off, add things on. So we'd really like to see Peralta get into the 21st century with those kinds of technology solutions to really help them. As far as the fiscal component goes, just to give you an example, in the first two categories, the schedule redesign and program redesign, the FCMAT report, you might recall, said that there were probably close to $3 million of available dollars to the district that are not being captured because the degrees are local degrees instead of transfer degrees. We also found that a 3-unit class, if you just schedule it 54 hours instead of the 52 and a half hours, you've got almost another $1 million. So you have $3 or $4 million right here, and just some things that require just the work of faculty and their deans and vice presidents to try to work on some of those pieces. So I'll turn it over to the Chancellor now.
So what have we done? We're in the block scheduling discussions, and the vice presidents had a meeting. And actually, I got information that we are a lot closer to block scheduling, and so we're looking at implementation for 2020. Also, you can see that we have that the classified professionals meet district-wide. We're focusing on the support classes. That means the math and the English classes, because that is something that gives us the boost with regard to the student-centered funding formula. We do have an increase in the amount of ADTs. There were over 62 ADTs. And the thing that you have to be careful about the ADTs is that while there are a certain number of areas that you can get an ADT in, there are a number of degrees that are local that are not available for ADT. So it's a combination of local degrees as well as ADTs. But if you have, let's say, an ADT in business administration and a local degree in business administration, what many colleges do is get rid of the local degree and say if you meet the ADT degree, so that it's not confusing for the student in terms of their transfer priorities and agreements. More ADTs have been established across the colleges. The colleges have put in place timelines for course and program updates. And as a matter of fact, at one of the colleges, if the course does not meet those timelines for update, then it's not offered. It will not be offered. So the people understand that the timeline for the work to be done, and then has it done through the curriculum process. All of the enrollment management plans have been updated, and we've even gotten some reports about that. About the enrollment management plans, and the websites and student videos have been refreshed at the college level, as well as you'll see some things at the last slide at the district level. Of course, there's an increase in use in social media all across. So wanted to let you know that these are some of the ways in which we're responding and meeting many of the recommendations that they've given.
Okay, so Area 3 is with Dr. Crow. I'll turn it over to him.
I may repeat some information, but I wanted to point out that as we visited, the many times we came on campus for our 2- and 3-day visits, we were able to meet with the vice chancellors, with other executive leaders, staff, and faculty. And these 4 themes of under systems and process emerged, and this is where we focused. I can just say a couple of words about each one of them, what's been discovered so far, and some of what we've been recommending and what the district is already doing. In the procurement process, with purchasing processes, I've been working with those departments involved, both the finance and the purchasing department, and we have discovered, as I don't know if you call it discovered, but agree that there are many bottlenecks in the process. And as in concurrent to this work, we're also looking at streamlining and getting paid the vendors, as was mentioned earlier. And I think there was great success in that. Some of those you'll see in terms of ratifications for contracts that were already approved. We noticed bottlenecks that are associated with PO numbers that need to be reinvented for each year, even though the contracts span multiple years. And we're looking to see what we can do to either automate that process or to even eliminate the need to do that. In work order processing, this was a theme in terms of we didn't know what we would see here. Work orders, we know that there were repairs and scheduled maintenance and other facility needs, and we started with the work order processing. And Dr., can I call you Dr. Sada yet? Okay, summer of 18. We met with him first, and then we met with staff, and then we met with individuals, met with buyers. I'm sorry, that was on the previous bullet. But we met with the engineers on the work order processing, and they led me through what a college does to initiate a repair, and then how that is prioritized, and then who gets assigned and how it goes. And for the most part, that system works. But it comes down to what was stated earlier. There aren't people there to prioritize the work. There aren't leaders in place to actually assign the work. So that has been in our recommendations, and there are recruitments in place now and additional staff that will be needed to truly make that system work. We also discovered through some staff suggestions the idea of prioritizing those district-wide projects that could be escalated and then considered on a district-wide instead of, may have been discovered as a college need or a repair, but then was now escalated to a project that could be then maintained by the district level. Going a little quickly here on the GO bond management and communications, I think it's really important that the program manager for that there's an RFP out for that, and I believe you're going to approve that in December. Is that correct? December, January. That's a really key position because there are processes in place, and I know you were discussing the oversight committee earlier, but it's really important to have a team in place to really execute that work well, and I've been working with Lee on that. Enterprise leasing and facilities use was an additional one I threw in there, and that gave me the opportunity to meet with all the budget managers, budget directors at each of the colleges. We got together a couple of different times, and we brainstormed on how we could look at the use of space district-wide and coordinate that and review the current policies and procedures and the fees charged for that. And that's still being developed, and I can't give you a finalized recommendation on that, but there's a lot of opportunity for, I think there was a little bit of pushback of saying, wait a minute, don't take our revenue from our college. But what we discovered is that there's an opportunity to increase the revenue to the college if we coordinate this in a thoughtful way.
So we're doing some things. The purchasing director selection is in progress. DGS and purchasing are now fully engaged and coordinating, so the right hand is talking to the left hand. New purchasing administrative procedures have been drafted, and they'll be going through. Work order system has been reestablished. The director of maintenance and operations, the chief engineer, the ground supervisor, and custodial supervisors are all in process. And the general obligation bond program manager will be hired, as you heard, in 2020. And the oversight committee is being staffed and scheduled as we speak.
Next area, Area 4, organizational structure and staffing. We've talked about this a little bit. I'll just touch on just a couple points. The structure of the district as a whole with centralized and decentralized services, there was a lot of information provided to us on trying to look at that. And several areas have been studied, in particular financial aid, registration, the registrar's office, those kinds of things needing to be decentralized to the colleges, with the concept that what we don't want to do is to have students to have to come to the district office for services. They should be able to get it at the colleges. Those areas to remain centralized and to strengthen the way that it works in a centralized mode are things like your personnel services, maintenance and operation, technology, IT services, so that staff can be deployed to whatever college or work in whatever college it's needed for whatever the project need might be at the time. As far as the structure of the governance structure, the August summit that was held, we got a lot of feedback from people. There were faculty, staff, all kinds of people there for that session, and got a lot of feedback. And there's a work group that's working on that to look at any suggestions for streamlining the process, making it work a little bit better. And so that kind of covers both of those topics. The instructional management structure, you heard from the Chancellor, that's something that's going to be studied, the department chair structure, and what's the right structure for today's world. Professional development is the last one in this area. A lot of, I know when I was here before, we had some discussion about professional development, that there is not the professional development that's needed in the district, in that there isn't even one full-time employee who is assigned full-time on an ongoing basis that handles all the professional development. And what we're looking at trying to support the district to do is to have a holistic model where when an employee is first hired, they have an orientation, they have an onboarding process, they have not only their mandated things like personnel things, but they also learn about the institution so that every employee that's hired knows what kind of programs are offered here, what kind of services are offered here, because each employee becomes its own marketing person out to the community to go out and talk to the community and be connected. So doing that and then following through with professional development and training and an ongoing cycle of having staff have the development that they need.
And I'll tell you here, in terms of the organization, we will be doing work in order to establish or to reorganize the district office. The recommendation was that that we get down to, I think, 2 to 3 vice chancellors. We are down to 5 vice chancellors, and we have some things in the works that we will look at ending up with 4 vice chancellors. And I can tell you that the recommendation that will come through, however we do this, is we will have a vice chancellor of human resources, of ed services, of facilities, and of finance. And so we'll get to that number. I'm not quite sure why the FICMAT report suggested that a district this size have 2 to 3 vice chancellors, because it's just not true. And so we can provide that information, but the reality is that that's the structure that I kind of see. We've asked the PBIM to make some recommendations to us with regard to the overall design principles, so that we can take the consideration, take those things into consideration as we do the work in terms of reorganization. We'll be looking at the overall decentralization and centralization issue, and that is the centralization or decentralization of, let's say, facilities, maintenance, technology, public relations, looking at the question about whether we have financial aid at the district office or not, whether you have A&R at the district office or not, and working with the colleges and to be able to get the right people on the college campuses where the students are to be able to get the access to those services. We'll identify what we need in terms of compliance and accreditation, and we are talking about an overall comprehensive professional development strategy that we'll start with trying to get some IEPI money. We can get about $200,000 in order to get that going, so we're starting those conversations with the Chancellor's office, and I'm going to be working with Dr. Harrington here with CBT in order to get that going.
And fiscal is obviously Dr. Crow.
So during phase 1, and as you were headed into your budget development for final adopted budget, and there was talk of rolling over the tentative budget, I was working with Vice Chancellor Harris and Adil Ahmad, and we looked at what had been done in the past, and I was asked through Dr. Harrington to validate the budget office numbers, review and analyze the student center funding formula, and validate the projections for Peralta District, and to review the FICMAT risk analysis, and then to provide some ongoing concerns that still remain. So we did that in terms of looking at the assumptions for the budget development. And what we all agreed on was that the district had not completely budgeted for all contracts and for full impact of utilities and repairs and things. And so the budget was adjusted for the final budget to include as many of these items as could be identified. And you had a much more robust budget that was more reflective of what was actually going to be spent in those areas. We also looked at the student center funding formula. The current version, 20-point-something, that's on the FICMAT webpage was the tool being used by districts up to a certain point. And then the district received some advice from the Chancellor's office in at the Sacramento to not use that tool at that time because there had been some errors that affected many of the districts, including Peralta. So therefore, the net revenue from apportionment was then assumed using the advanced apportionment schedule. And I validated that that was the advice given to the district. I called the Chancellor's office in Sacramento, and they agreed that that was what the district should do. Then I looked at the FCMAT risk analysis, and each of the items, we cross-referenced that with the CBT report, and we found to be that we were, 99.99% in agreement. There were different lenses that we looked through, but we were in agreement on that. And since then, I've been examining, we have been together looking at that FCMAT report and cross-referencing it with your tables that you've been using, and then providing, as the Chancellor, Dr. Stroud, had said earlier, providing what is possible to do in the near future, and then what are some of the long-range goals for that. So on ongoing concerns, are included in my list here. I just jotted them down from another report that we were working on. There's still some accounts payable obligations. There's a lot of cleanup being done there, but looking at that, how that is going to be sustained so that the vendors continue to get paid and that the process doesn't have the bottlenecks that it currently has. Also looking at long-range facility and technology needs that the district needs to incorporate into long-range planning. The deficit spending trends and addressing that, the decline of FTS, productivity measures, and then looking at what if the student-centered funding formula isn't fully funded. So we're looking at the best case scenario on the apportionment, and I have no reason to doubt that at this time, but traditionally there's a cycle of years where there's a deficit at the state level, and or because other districts are fully exploiting the SCIF, and there may not be funding to completely fund all of those measures, as well as, like I said earlier, the decline in FTS. And then there's the system deficit factor, fully funding the SCIF, and then a deficit factor that could be applied at the state. So looking at long term, these are some concerns that we still have for fiscal stability, and we'll be providing recommendations on how the 5-year projections can be adjusted for that.
So if I can just say to you, and I'll let you take a look at this at a later date, based on all of the things that we've gotten and the work that's been done, we've actually been putting some things in place. So there are multiple things that are in progress right now that address the recommendations from FCMAT.
And the last area, Area 6, we actually did not have included in the contract other than being a resource to the new executive director. So Mark Johnson came on board and met with him and shared with him the findings that we had from our Phase 1 and recommended the things you see here, the web page development, becoming more mobile and user-friendly, diversifying some of the marketing. And the last bullet, very important, is trying to work towards a recruitment program for new students. And that means new students that we've not reached yet at any of the colleges, or trying to get students on financial aid that have not been on financial aid. Maybe that's been their barrier to coming here. And then also in reaching, which in reaching meaning the students that are already here, why are they not carrying more classes? What is it? Do they need financial help? Do they just need a different schedule? What is it that they need that will help them take more units with us? So the suggestion to Mark was to look at a spring campaign for both current students and for new students.
And we hope that we're giving you the picture that we are acting on many of those suggestions, expanding the social media, doing things with our web page, refreshing them, troubleshooting our messaging to the students, the email and the SIMS, the SMS, improving the tools that we use in order to update or refresh the websites, getting more analytics that tell us a little bit about the use of the websites, and then having the governance meetings in order to redesign the website. So that's some of the work that's been done in that area thus far.
Just turn that on, turn it off. Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, so thank you. We hope that we've given you a good idea of what we asked CBT to do, what they've done, what they're going to be doing, and then how we are meeting those recommendations. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Thank you, CBT team, and thank you, Chancellor. If there are questions, we should go ahead and take those now, or we can move into information technology. And just as a reminder, we are at 10:10 p.m. So let's go to IT.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Thank you for this opportunity to present. I will be as brief as possible, but concise, because it's already 10:10. Earlier on in the year, with One Peralta previously, an engagement of transforming our institution and really servicing the students effectively. There were some lessons learned out of that we're taking into this new upgrade approach and what that means. Although there was discussion and not much in terms of people assuming that progress was being made, but actually progress was being made. So what was discussed previously is that although we were planning for an upgrade of the new environment to alleviate some of the expenditures in which we've been incurring since 2015, the items that were identified, the pain points and the wish list items that needed to be addressed and implemented to take our institution forward could still be done in this current version, in which we did. Because the whole concept and idea was that once we engage in the upgrade effort, it would be transparent to the user and automatically be in the new system to be fully utilized among faculty, staff, and also students. And as you can see here from the chart, out of 52 items, 38 have already been completed. There are 4 approximately that have not been started, and there are many that are in progress, approximately 10, but they're addressing some of the issues in which, for example, the first implementation and phase of time and labor has already gone into effect, which is improvement of the back office. Transfer credits and degree audit aspect, the configuration has been moved into production, and also part of the transfer credit has also been in the system. The business working teams, in conjunction with IT, have been planning on resource allocation in terms of what needs to be in place in order to get the information in from translating the transcript and getting that into the system, and also what needs to be configured. So we're moving as best as we can, and also at the same time planning for the upgrade. This gives you an approximate timeline of what we're looking at for the upgrade of four systems, actually. Already in the previous upgrade, it was supposed to be a 5 system, which only 1 went live, which was the financial system, in which was called One Peralta. 4 systems. The upgrade plan does a couple aspects, which is not only to improve our infrastructure for sustainability and continuity, but also more of a more cost-effective approach, because our current expenditures and what our district had invested in initially cost us approximately $550,000. That's infrastructure and loan without a redundant line, disaster recovery in place. The new plan is half that cost from an infrastructure standpoint, but with disaster recovery as part of that engagement. This kind of charts out. It can be 10 months, very aggressive. Also, it could take as long as 12 to 15 months. And as things go along, we're wrapping it in within 10 months, but under the expectation that depending on things that come up in our institution, that the timeline may shift. But the transparency will be that given the opportunity, I will always present to the board what's ahead, what the issues are, why do we have to move, what's the implication, what's the impact, and I think that's very important because when we need to put the brakes on the project at certain aspects, then we need to do that in order to manage our costs and also manage our resources and bandwidth in terms of if there's any constraints to the institution, because we seem to be moving on very rapidly without understanding our current backlog of daily tasks that's ahead. And just to enlighten the board, when we're upgrading a system, the complexity you can see is here, the integration complexity. The red boxes show the PeopleSoft system that we have within our software portfolio here, and the blue boxes depict all the other subsystems that actually integrate into our enterprise system. When we upgrade a system, not only do our core system change in terms of the retrofits, the files that need to be changed, or the integration points change, but all the subsystem that it touches has the potential of changing too. So upgrading our system also means planning for potential upgrades to the other system and how that interchange happens. And to quickly wrap up, the next step of the PeopleSoft upgrade is really to determine the funding source, because we've already spent a large allocation in the prior project, but we're working with finance to determine where the funding will come from. And finally, on December board meeting, I hope to present the final upgrade plan with the costs and to show also the offset in terms of where we're at, where we're going, and how we're going to sustain within the 5 years. And then the last and final is really to engage in the implementation planning aspect and to really focus on what is going to need to happen to make this project really successful. And questions and answers? Hopefully that was brief enough.
Thank you for that. Questions? Yes, yes, and we look forward to updates from you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trustee Reese.
Thank you, and Vice Chancellor Lamb. So, and I came in while you were already presenting. My apologies if I didn't catch the first part. As I'm looking at the chart where you had the blocks in blue, light blue, green, and orange, we are moving towards the final upgrade, right? And there are 14 tasks that still need to be completed in order for us to get our systems on par and well running. And so I wanted to clarify those 2 points. But as I think about this final upgrade, does that then mean that after we get those 14 tasks running and we get to the final upgrade, that our technological problems, which really touches all of our problems as outlined in the FCMAT report and the CBT report, will those now not be a problem? Is that what you're saying?
No, let me clarify 2 points. So the 14 tasks out of the 52, the 14 that are still in progress. So the 52 were items that were identified in the initial upgrade that said, we're waiting for a new system to put these things in place. So what we did in the plan was, let's engage in putting those things to rest and start implementing things or fixing things in the current system and not wait for the new system. So regardless of the 14 tasks, we can still engage in the new upgrade of the new system and then wrapping it all together to have it all completed. When we say upgrade, to say, well, just implementing these alleviate everything, well, I think it's quite obvious in the FCMAT report, CBT, and such. We have to develop a whole system around the application itself, meaning operationally, how do we engage, where the handoffs are, and then what needs to be in place in the materials that have to go forward in terms of engaging with the different modules within PeopleSoft to make it really function. Because the system alone without the operational handoffs and understanding how to use the system doesn't mean anything. So I'll give an example. Position control is one of the items that we're looking towards addressing. I think from an IT standpoint, we understand the technology or the features within it, but really what should be within position control? What are the requirements? How should we configure, how should we build it to work for our institution? Because best practice in other areas, other organization, doesn't necessarily mean that that best practice fits our organization. So we have to shape that best practice to make sure that it's within our environment that works for us based on the resources, based on our operations, and based on what we're trying to achieve in either the short amount of time or an extended amount of time.
President Bonilla, if I may, I just want to say I understand, Trustee Napoli Abella Reese, what you're asking, and I'm going to give you a layman's response to that.
Thank you. I might understand that better.
Because I have to admit that I have to have Vice Chancellor Lamb help make me smart about these things, but this is the way I understood it when I asked a similar question. There are 5 areas that we need to have up technologically in terms of our infrastructure. We have 1. And in the course of having that 1, we spend a lot of money to get that done. And that's the piece that's done, which is that 1 module. The rest of the modules, the 4, the human resources module, all of those other 4, we don't have. And so my question to him was, what do we need to do in order to get all of those up, and how long will it take? And the answer, even though we're shy about giving the answer because it will change, I guarantee you, the answer is that over the next year to, meaning 12 to 14 months, and with about $1.2 to $1.5 million, we'll have all of those modules up. And what that means also is that a lot of the issues that are in the FITMAC and CBT recommendations can be addressed because we're doing so many things manually. So it will address a lot of those things in those recommendations that require technological integration in order to do so. Now, will it address everything? Not necessarily so. So he's being very careful with his answer because he's giving you the precise answer. But in general, we have to have the other 4 modules up technologically in order to get this district running in an automated fashion, and that you're not sitting there doing things by hand.
Thank you. That makes me feel better.
Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you for that layperson's response. To summarize, 12 to 14 months, $1.5 million.
Yeah, and it could change.
Okay, so what would be super helpful when we get our report in December, when that is laid out, is if we could have that budget laid out, and then what are the milestones over the next 12 to 14 months that we could look at in 2 months to go, are we there? How are we doing on budget? What's our burn rate on that 1.2? Because in general, what's happened to us is, well, you know what's happened to us. And so, and it's been so far off of anything that you could imagine, like
so I will
by
do
a factor of, I can't tell you how many.
So I will do my job in terms of the Chancellor's role in making sure that we have those milestones established and that we're on track and that we are keeping you informed of where we are. But that's precisely what I will be responsible for, to making sure that we have those standards established, we're on track to doing those, and we're accomplishing what we say we're going to accomplish.
Thank you, Chancellor. Any other questions? Thank you so much for that report.
Thank you.
We are going to move to item 4.1, public hearing under facilities. 4.1 is conduct public hearing on initial study mitigated negative declaration for the Laney College new library and learning resource project, and consider adoption of resolution number 19/20-13, adopting the initial study mitigated negative declaration, CEQA findings, mitigation measures, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, and approving the project.
And President Bonilla, just to clarify, at this point, you'll take the public hearing, and then the action item is agendized at 9.1.
Was this written differently? Does it say something
It
different?
was just because the two items were attached, the public hearing and the action item, which are both happening, but they're agendized.
Okay,
as
and
two
so they've
items.
been separated, and so we have the adoption portion below. So this is the hearing, gavel in, and any public comments on this in this section? I don't believe we have any, so we'll gavel out. And we're done. Fantastic. We're moving on to consent item consent calendar.
Move approval of the consent calendar.
And we have a second, thank you. And we can go ahead and take roll call.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy?
Yes.
Trustee Gonzalez Yuan?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli Bellarice?
Yes.
Trustee Brown? Trustee Weinstein? And Trustee Bonilla?
Yes,
Thank you, motion carries.
thank you. We'll move into action items.
Madam President, I would like to move the entire group of action items 9.1 through 9.10, accepting 9.5.
And President Bonilla, if I may, we actually need,
Can I, wait, hold on one second, I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you just said? please?
Items 9.1 through 9.4 and 9.6 through 9.10.
With the exception, and I hear what you're saying, yes. And there's one, can you give us, is it 9.10?
sorry, President Bonilla, we would respectfully like to request that two motions be made on item 9.1. The first is to approve the resolution that's attached to the document. And assuming that you do approve that, then we would ask that you approve the actual project. Those actually have to be done as two separate motions.
Okay, so,
Let me withdraw my motion and move item 9.1 alone.
Thank you.
okay,
Second.
we have a second. And we will need roll call.
Student Trustee Stanley? Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Yes. Trustee Gonzalez Yuan? I can't hear you. Trustee Napoli Bellarice? Trustee Brown? Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes,
Thank you, motion carries.
thank
And
you.
then I'd like to ask that you now approve the project as a separate
So
motion.
can we, I'm sorry, we're going to take 9.1, and we are considering adoption of resolution number 19/20-13, adopting the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, CEQA findings, mitigation measures, and mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project, and approving the project.
So we just did that.
Well, that's not how it's written here, so I'm losing my patience here. If this were to be adopted in a particular way, it needed to be written in a particular way. So it was not.
Let me just,
So,
if I may.
I'm sorry, VC
Okay.
Sada, hold on 1 second. And so can I get clarification on how and why this, how should this have been written?
Yeah, my apologies
Counsel.
for the combo item, that the way that 9.1 is agendized. So the and approving the project is a second motion is necessary for that portion of this item.
So if we can pull the first one and omit the and approving, and we're just approving what I just first read.
You just
minus-
did. Correct. You've approved part one, so it's like a 9.1A and a 9.1B.
Okay.
And so you've approved 9.1A, and now we are seeking a motion to approve the second part, which is the project itself. And so if we could have a motion on that.
I would like to move approval of the project embedded in item 9.1.
Right? Thank you.
You have a second.
And we have a second, and we can do roll call. Thank you. Withrow.
Trustee Withrow?
Yes.
Excuse me, Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan? Yes. Trustee Napoli-Abella Reese? Trustee Brown? Yes. Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Madam President, now I would like to move items 9.2 through 9.4 and 9.6 through 9.10.
Second.
Thank you. We have a second, and we can do roll call.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Woodrow?
Yes.
Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan?
Yes.
Trustee Napoli-Abella Reese?
Yes.
Trustee Brown? Trustee Weinstein?
Yes.
And Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you. And just for future reference, we have to clarify these items and put them on the agenda in the appropriate fashion so that we can not have to go through this. Thank you. We're going to go to reports because we know.
We've got 9.5.
9.5.
I'm sorry, 9.5, of course. Consider ratification of various urgent HVAC repairs performed by City Mechanical between July 24, 2018 and August 21st, 2018 at the Laney College campus, in the amount of $34,105.81. We have an approval by Trustee Handy. Do we have a second? Second. We have a second. And discussion. Trustee Reese.
The question that I have for this is, and I understand that it was an urgent item and it's HVAC, but it was also from 2018. And as I looked at our policy, AP 6340-A, the table that is there talks about our requirements for anything over 25K. And that includes board pre-approval, a signed contract, and a bid process. And let me be clear, I support payment of vendors because I know that that's been a problem. So I just want clarification as to why this did not go through the proper processes of that policy, number one, and then the second question second comment I will put forth in a bit.
What I would say is that based on my understanding of the project as noted here in the write-up, it was an unforeseen condition, and it was concerned that without the air conditioning system working, that class would actually have to be canceled. So that was the basis for why the contractor was let and why the process was moved forward.
Okay, then my comment to that, and maybe my question to that would be, this was from 2018, so why are we just now dealing with something that urgently was taken care of in 2018?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. This is one of the liability list items that we're trying to finish up and clear. The board, the administrative policies do say that the Chancellor has the authority to go ahead and approve things so long as we bring it back for ratification within 2 months, and that simply wasn't followed in this case.
And my follow-up question to that is, we've actually approved several ratifications for 2019 and 2018, so I'm a little concerned. And if this is, and I know we have a lot to clean up, so please don't get me wrong, but if this is part of the last 10, wonderful and great, and you won't hear from me, but I do fear that we're using, I fear that this is becoming more a way of our process and procedure rather than the correct policy and procedure. So do we know how many more there may be? Where are we as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, as of just prior to this board meeting, we had 15 items. I think this relieves most of those. I think we have the last, I'll just say half dozen or so coming in December.
Okay, so half dozen, I'm holding you to that, half dozen.
Yeah, and those then will be clear. Of the previous fiscal year liability list items.
Okay.
Trustee Brown?
6.
I'd like to propose a slight modification to the approach that we, instead of make this a ratification, which is complicated by the fact that there's a procedure for an emergency process, And then there's the bond issue. We don't have a performance bond. It's over. There are a couple of legal impediments on this one. I would suggest that we just call it a settlement, because what we're actually doing is paying a debt and going outside of the normally required or the statutorily required process for an emergency, because we didn't do it at the time. So rather than a ratification, which would then suppose the approval of the contract with the deficiencies, we do a settlement so that we simply pay the vendor, which then doesn't, which then can accept out some of the actual statutory requirements that weren't met.
Thank you for that, Trustee Brown.
Is that acceptable to this general counsel? You actually, the chancellor, through the chancellor, it's.
I prefer not to advise from the dais on legal matters, but the Chancellor and I will discuss an approach and report back to the board. Thank you.
But do we vote on it tonight then?
Yeah, our recommendation would be to vote on this. This item has been vetted by DWK, and it's being presented to you after consideration of the idea of a settlement agreement as well as in terms of approach. And they are recommending it go forward this way. A year later, yeah. So our recommendation would be to take action on this item as it is agendized, please.
Well, I think the concern here is that there could potentially be more items like this. And so this is something that we had discussed often, and there had been a strategy put in place that was very similar to what Trustee Brown has just brought up. And so it's disheartening to see us back at the dais dealing with this very same issue. So we will go ahead and move forward with roll call, please.
Student Trustee Stanley?
Yes.
Trustee Withrow? Trustee Handy? Trustee Gonzalez-Yuan?
Yes.
Trustee Napolia-Bella Reese?
No.
Trustee Brown?
Nope.
Trustee Weinstein? Trustee Bonilla?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Are we done with action items? You all lost me completely. Are we done? Oh, fantastic. Board reports. Trustee Withrow. Student Trustee Stanley. Trustee Handy. Trustee Brown.
Pass.
Trustee Reese.
Pass.
Trustee Gonzalez, Nguyen.
Oh, I'll just join the crowd and pass.
Trustee Vice President Weinstein.
I want to thank our students and faculty members who went to Washington, D.C. today to protest and demonstrate in terms of the DACA and legal brief that was being presented and being discussed today at the Supreme Court. So thank you very much for going and representing our colleges.
Thank you. And announcements? VP Weinstein?
Yes. The next regular board meeting will be held on December 10th in the district boardroom. The board wishes all a happy Thanksgiving and holiday. As a reminder, Peralta will be closed on Thursday, November 28th, Friday, 29th, in observance. Madam President, that concludes the announcements for this evening.
Thank you. That's